Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Good morning to you. It's Friday, July 31st, the last day of the month as we get ready to go into August. Before you know it, it'll be fall and football will be back. But outside of football, we have some very serious things going on in our country, including the need to pass, of course, as you guys know, the Save America Act. On top of that, we've been looking at some international news as well out of Spain and Morocco. The vice president just recently posting an article, or at least a image or a video of what's happening out there, the mass migrant invasion that's happening. You can see thousands and thousands and thousands of people going from Morocco, of course, part of Africa, into Europe, Spain, near Gibraltar. It's all right there. I looked at the map yesterday. And he was thanking God, basically, that we have a president that closed down that southern border, because we saw under Biden, let's just call it and tell it like it is today. It's Friday. Let's just do it, right? We saw under Biden that basically leftists, they love destruction. They love to destroy. They love to steal. That's what they're geared toward. That's their lean for some reason. Well, that's what we're seeing there in Spain and Morocco. That's what we saw with Joe Biden, with Texas and Mexico recently. But now, because of President Trump, things are on the right track. Thank God for that. Speaking of the president, today we go to Camp David in Maryland, some 70 miles northwest of the White House, for President Trump's 13th cabinet meeting of his second administration. That meeting to start at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Of course, we'll bring you there live as soon as we see that feed. This is the first time in my career that I've covered a Camp David cabinet meeting with the President of the United States. And that's what we're doing today. We're going to watch it together. Looking forward to that. Before we get into a ton of news, we have a few great interviews with our great sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. So let's begin our broadcast with Birch Gold Group. Check out this interview in case you missed it, clip number 1. Let's go to Birch Gold Group's Philip Patrick joining us right now. Thank you so much, Philip, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Matthew.
Definitely. The Federal Reserve, left interest rates unchanged this week. So how does that square with Chairman Warsh's insistence on maintaining that 2% inflation target, Philip?
Yeah, I thought Warsh's insistence on the Fed's target was very telling, especially since the decision in a vacuum will not bring down inflation. But I think his restatement of the 2% target reflects how difficult the inflation picture has become for the Fed to deal with. Higher interest rates work to quell inflation by making borrowing more expensive and slowing consumer spending, business and hiring. But the problem is a lot of the inflation we're seeing is not coming on the demand side, it's coming on the supply side. And that's the problem that the Fed have. They can't create supply, right? They can't drill for oil. So rates essentially are a blunt instrument. They can cool demand, but like I said, they can't create the supply side. So that's the challenge that the Fed are facing today. If they raise too little, inflation becomes entrenched. And if they raise them too aggressively, then they risk slowing the economy without addressing the original source of the price increases. So it's a tough one, and you can see it, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, at the same time, we see the administration has imposed those new tariffs on imports from dozens of nations. So can our country rebuild domestic industry without making the Fed's inflation problem even harder?
The answer is short term, I think it puts a squeeze on the Fed, but long term, it's very important. This is a legitimate long term objective. The problem is tariffs themselves don't rebuild manufacturing. What they do is they change incentives. Shorter term, though, those higher costs are passed on. It's either absorbed by businesses or consumers. So, tariffs work well, I think, as part of a broader industrial strategy that includes reliable energy, skilled labor, infrastructure, permitting reform, all of it. So I know Trump and the team are working towards it, but shorter term, it's going to put a little bit more pressure on the Fed and a little bit more pressure on prices.
And speaking of the team, of course, Scott Besson at Treasury. Treasury is increasingly relying on some of the short-term bills to finance the government. So what does that really mean for the national debt?
Look, it tells us, I think, that the situation's getting a little bit more desperate. Treasury bills, so the short term, they mature in 1 year or less, which means Washington are having to refinance a growing share of the national debt much more frequently. Bills are attractive because demand is strong for them, so they can reduce borrowing costs in the shorter term. But every time those bills mature, the Treasury's got to refinance them at whatever rate is present at the time. It's a little bit like refinancing your mortgage with an adjustable rate loan. It works until rates get higher, and then you start to have a problem. So it's it's working to lower debt service longer term, but I think it's reflecting a broader problem. And ultimately, if we can't stop amassing debt, as you and I have discussed many times, that's going to be the biggest problem that we're facing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts out there with the financial markets, with trade policy, interest rates, and federal borrowing all pulling really in different directions. What role can physical gold actually play for families concerned about the purchasing power of the dollar?
Yeah, look, I think we're seeing it, right? Gold has had a volatile year, but anyone that's held it for a year is up over 20%, 2 years, 70%, 3 years over 100%. So precious metals are moving in this climate. And I think it's because there is a realization globally that from a debt and deficit standpoint, we are in at least short term trapped. We're printing money to meet deficits, which devalues the dollar and ultimately drives the price of gold up. And what I would say is gold's not about predicting disaster. It's just about recognizing that we've got a lot of challenges and a lot of uncertainty in front of us. And precious metals do very, very well in those climates. And as a final point, this isn't about putting everything into gold. It's about making sure that a portion of our financial future isn't entirely dependent on policymakers getting absolutely every decision right.
So if people text Trump to that number 989898, tell us what will happen from there as soon as they do that.
Look, broadly, they're just going to get access to a ton of good information, guides on how and why to buy gold in this climate, technical analysis. And then from there, if they want to learn more, they're going to have access to myself and a lot of people like me. We're very knowledgeable in terms of the precious metals markets. We can answer questions, guide them through. And ultimately, if there's something they want to do, we can help facilitate putting physical precious metals in a retirement account or directly in their hand for a cash purchase.
Day in and day out here at the network, we ask a question when we talk about Birch Gold Group to our viewers, and that question is, what is the foundation of your savings? Is it gold or something that could be shaken, disrupted, or devalued? Isn't that the most common sense way to ask that question?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think if you look at it in those terms, and that was the point I was trying to make, right? Like for a lot of people, everything's sitting in paper and they're very reliant on the Fed getting it right, interest rates right, inflation getting under control. I'm hopeful. We've got the strongest, governmental team I've ever seen in my lifetime. But, we have insurance for our house, for our car, for our, bodies, for our health. And I think precious metals, in a way, are a form of insurance to say, hey, if this side gets tricky, at least we have a portion in precious metals that'll grow. And I think it's that simple.
Yeah, that's a perfect point right there. This is Philip Patrick with Birch Gold Group. Philip, thanks again for your insight on the markets, and thanks for joining us here on Right Side.
Thank you.
Definitely. So there you go. We wouldn't be celebrating America 250 if it wasn't for that strong foundation set by our framers. So Alexander Hamilton, of course, built America's financial foundation on the principle of sound, stable money. It's really a principle later embodied by the gold standard. However, of course, we abandoned that discipline back in 1971 and have since seen inflation erode the dollar's value over the years. So that's the question. What is the foundation of your savings? Is it gold or something that can be shaken, disrupted, or devalued? So Birch Gold Group has been helping Americans solidify their savings with gold for the past 15 years. And they'll help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. You can learn how gold fits into your portfolio by texting the word Trump to that number 989898. You'll receive a free no-obligation info kit. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews, you can let Birch Gold help build your foundation with gold. Just text the word Trump to that number 989898. Again, Trump to 989898. Great sponsor here on Right Side. Great to speak with Philip Patrick. Always great to speak with Michael Kunzler, the owner of All Family Pharmacy, who you'll see later in this broadcast. because you've probably been hearing about this cyclospora parasite that's been making headlines lately. Health officials have been investigating this outbreak that has now been reported in more than half of our states, looking at 31 states at this point. The parasite can cause severe diarrhea, stomach cramps, nausea, and fatigue. It's also a good reminder that unexpected illnesses can happen, which is why it's important to have a pharmacy you can count on for easy access to essential medications and physicians that can provide a prescription when you need it. And that's really where All Family Pharmacy comes in. They've made healthcare simple. You can order medications on their website, get the prescription from their doctors if needed. Then your medications are shipped directly to your door. They offer antibiotics like Bactim. This is commonly recommended for this cyclospora parasite, this infection. They also have other anti-parasitic medications, everyday maintenance meds, allergy medications, and hundreds of other prescriptions. All you have to do is visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, save 10% by using that RSBN 10 promo code. And you can also give them a call at 561-717-6794 if you have any questions. You could talk to a pharmacist. They have all the access right there. A lot of times when you call maybe another place, a box store pharmacy, traditional one that you'd see on the corner of whatever street, they might ask you to leave a voicemail. You get a call within the hour. Forget all that. All Family Pharmacy. These guys, you know, you think about medical freedom, these guys are the ones that started out of COVID when it comes to ivermectin. And people were trying to get ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and this is one place that you can get it back in the day. And now they've grown to a successful, great pharmacy. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And they were probably successful back when they started as well. All right, so 9:42, Friday, July 31st. Looking live on this Friday. Happy Friday to you. Hopefully you have a great, great weekend. Hopefully there's not any major breaking news, but you know it's tough when you work in the news business and in politics. There's always something going on. That's why we call it the 24/7 news cycle. But it is looking beautiful there in Washington, D.C. on this Friday morning, 9:43 this morning. And if anybody's watching out there on the West Coast Pacific time zone, it's only 6:43 in the morning. Thank you for watching. Wow. But this is a big day. We know President Trump will be having that 13th cabinet meeting at Camp David, about 70 miles northwest of that region right there. That meeting starts at 11 this morning. All right, let's jump back into some of the news. We have some more interviews coming up in just a bit. But did you know that RFK Jr. will host his own show to benefit Americans? Here are the details in clip number 2.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary. Welcome to The Real Food Show. Thanks to President Trump, we flipped the food pyramid and put real food back where it belongs, at the center of the American plate. I'm traveling across America, connecting with renowned chefs to show families how to cook delicious, nutritious meals with real ingredients and all at affordable prices. America, it's time to eat real food. Let's get cooking. And there'd been a war on saturated fats for almost 70 years. The government had been lying to us and telling us that protein caused heart attacks. There was no science that supported that. And one of the things we found when we started looking at the real science was that when you don't eat protein, you eat something else, and it was ultra-processed foods. And most people chose, so 70% of the calories that our children were eating were ultra-processed food. Today, we're taking another step to make America healthy again with the launch of The Real Food Show, a new series that makes healthy, affordable cooking simple and accessible for every American. This is not just another cooking show. It's about helping Americans take back their health.
There you go. We'll see how this show does, because at the end of the day, RFK Jr., supported by many Americans across this country. Who doesn't love MAGA, America First? Who doesn't love Make America Healthy Again? So this I think this will take off even in 5 years from now. It'll continue to be a show. Anyway, The Real Food Show with your host, RFK Jr. Again, doing a lot of work for our country. Great to see that. Meantime, speaking of health, Let's now go to a recent interview with the great folks at Brightcore. Check it out. And joining us now is Kim Bright, founder of Brightcore Nutrition, of course, who's going into their 30th year in September and has been helping people with health and wellness for more than 50 years, so 5 decades. Thank you so much for joining us, Kim.
Well, thanks for having me back. I'm grateful to be here, Matthew.
Yeah, and I always enjoy our conversations here about Brightcore Nutrition, and I understand there's a health concern out there that's garnering more and more attention. We've talked about it here too. Can you explain to me exactly what microplastics are?
Yeah, microplastics are a big problem. They are these tiny plastic particles, usually smaller than 5 millimeters, and they form when the larger plastic items that we use all the time break down through either sunlight, heat, friction. They are finding them everywhere, Matthew, in our oceans, our rivers, our soil, the food, drinking water, and even our air. And, we have been unknowingly exposed to and ingesting these microplastics every single day for decades.
That's wild. That's wild because we hear about this a lot, microplastics, and people want to get away from it, and they want to talk about BPA free, that kind of thing. But how do these microplastics actually get into our body? And then once they're there, do they stay there, or how does this work?
Well, because these particles are so small, they can easily move up through the food chain, and then they eventually land in our organs. And the fruits and vegetables that we are eating every day are tainted because crop irrigation washes these microplastics into the soil. And then that's allowing these particles to be absorbed by the plants through their roots. And then get this, 88% of our meat, seafood, and other protein sources, including things like tofu, contain these microplastics now, 88%. And 94% of the water that we're drinking in the United States contains microplastics. And it's like I said, Matthew, it's even in the air we breathe. And the average American is inhaling 68,000 microplastic particles every single day. And we are ingesting 6 times more microplastics than we did in 1990.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. No pun intended. Once you do take it in, what does it mean for your health?
Well, for instance, if microplastic plaque is discovered in your arteries or veins, you're going to be 4.5 times more likely to die from a heart attack or stroke. And these microplastics have even been shown to cross the blood-brain barrier, which now we understand can lead to early onset dementia.
These are awful things to hear right now, but the question then is there really anything natural that we can do to try and combat these microplastics in our body?
Well, let me say first, our brains now are even 99.5% human and 0.5% plastic. That's about a plastic spoon's worth. So if you take a plastic spoon, a heavy-duty plastic spoon, that's what's in your brain. And the only thing that it's not easy for anybody to avoid plastic in our world that is dependent upon these plastics, and avoiding plastic bottles or containers or synthetic materials like the polyester in most all our clothing, and cutting down on packaged or processed foods. Those are all important steps, Matthew. But limiting the use of plastic is not going to be enough. We must take active steps to remove these toxins before they do irreversible damage.
And then, so what are some of the solutions then to actually do that? Because, I mean, with all of your experience with wellness and health for the people, over 50 years of that, you guys are going to be, your company, 30 years young in September.
Yes.
So I'm sure you have a lot of, research as to what would be a good thing to do from there.
Well, yeah, I've read a lot of research over those 50 plus years. And, I'm 71 now, so I've really taken in a lot of research, let me tell you. But this brand new study that just came out shows how kimchi can actually eliminate and extract these microplastics from the body. I got so excited with this, and it's due to a specific strain of lactic acid bacteria known as LAB also, and it's unique, Matthew, to kimchi, and it's extremely effective in removing plastics in vivo.
That's pretty awesome to hear. Tell us about any product then that you guys may have when it comes to Brightcore Nutrition, because at the end of the day, we know about the word microplastics, as I mentioned at the top of the interview, is something that people understand now. It's not, maybe 10, 15 years ago, like you said, it wasn't as bad, but now it's really bad.
Oh, it's really bad. But before I get to that, I want to talk about another strain that's found in kimchi, the century-old food, called Bacillus pumila. That's been shown to actually degrade the BPA you were talking about earlier. And that's the most toxic chemical in plastic. So the reason that kimchi is so effective is because of the direct impact that it's having on our gut microbiome. So keeping our gut microbiome healthy is what's going to determine the health of our entire body, Matthew. And having that perfect balance of good and bad bacteria is what keeps you healthy.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard about this kimchi product, or this kimchi to take. Can you tell us more about what kimchi actually is?
Well, kimchi is a century-old food, and it's proven itself down through the centuries. Koreans live 5 to 6 years longer than we do. That's where this originated. And the key to getting all these benefits from kimchi is daily consumption. They do this in Korea, sometimes every meal. But sometimes it's just not convenient, or people don't like the taste, especially in America. So this is why we created something called Kimchi One. And whether you like the taste of kimchi or not, it's not something that is easy, again, to eat every single day. But now it is, because what we did is we put it in convenient capsules made for your daily use, and we use a cold process drying method to retain all of its fiber. That's the prebiotics that feed your probiotics, and it contains the nutrition of actual fermented kimchi. Now, it's low in sodium, unlike store-bought. It's 100% made in the USA, and our Kimchi One is all natural, non-GMO, and that includes the capsules that we use. Our capsules are all natural and plant-based, and again, 100% made in the USA. And we have so many success stories from people that have been using our Kimchi One. They write us, they call us, people that had problems with their digestion and bloating are finally regular. They don't deal with all that gas anymore. People who had problems with their immune system and used to get sick all the time aren't getting sick anymore. Remember, 70 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And people who experience chronic fatigue finally have energy again, Matthew. And lastly, people with diabetes who struggle with their blood sugar, blood pressure, and their weight, their changes.
The question I have then is, how can I get some? How can I tell my family about this? Where do I go to get that? Because, and that's not joking. That's I've heard, like I said, I've heard of kimchi before, but the fact that, yeah, you can bypass the whole taste of it and all that through a capsule that's already plant-based. So tell us how you get one of these. Is it a bottle product, or what is it?
Yes, it's capsules in a bottle. So get 25% off by going to brightcore.com/RSBN and use the code RSBN, or call 888-722-0936 for up to 50% off plus free shipping. Now, we're a small family business going into our 30th year. We want you to call so we can talk to you and make sure that this is the right product for you. And the first 100 callers are going to get a free vitamin D plus K2 with their order. So remember, you're only going to get those discounts, those best discounts in that free bottle of vitamin D3 plus K2 when you call 888-722-0936.
The thing that I really like about this is kimchi is, we talked about before, is natural. This is a natural product, isn't it?
It's a food, yes. And God gave us this wonderful food, this fermented food.
Awesome stuff. Kim Bright is the founder of Brightcore Nutrition, again, going into their 30th year in September. And Kim has been helping people with health and wellness for more than 5 decades. Kim, thank you for your friendship to this network, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you. God bless, and happy 4th of July.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Some great sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network: Birch Gold Group, All Family Pharmacy, Brightcore, the list goes on, Tax Network USA, Kalshi, Great USA Dog Gift. How about freeusadoggift.com? Cove Pure, the list goes on. My Pillow, I think I named everybody. I'm pretty sure I did. But outside of that, grateful for our sponsorships, and also grateful for all of you that donate to the network. Speaking of sponsorships, let's go to one of them. I think it's Kalshi.com. Actually, Tax Network USA. Usually I'm right about the next one, but there we go. TNUSA.com/RSBN. You know, there's a lot of financial questions out there when it comes to back taxes. Basically, do you owe back taxes or have unfiled tax returns? Well, this is the company that will get you back on track, because however your tax issue started, the outcome, unfortunately, is the same. Your balance just not going down. Penalties are growing. Interest compounds. And then you still have that just financial headache of, wow, I missed 2017 or whatever year it was, right? So the IRS, they're not waiting. The IRS is enforcing collections through wage garnishments, bank levies, and property seizures. They can even file for you without your consent. And this is really where Tax Network USA comes in. They have more than 15 years in business. There hasn't been a tax case they haven't seen or resolved. And they specialize in tax controversies and help taxpayers nationwide get back on track by resolving back taxes and unfiled returns once and for all. And whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, their team has resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. And they could do the same for you, but you have to give them a call because they're offering this free investigation call with the IRS. So after that investigation, Tax Network USA will put a clear case plan in place to resolve your tax problem and get you back on track. What this is really about is using your legal rights to take control before the government sets the terms for you. So don't wait for another IRS letter or a frozen bank account. Just give them a call, 877-479-6503, 877-479-6503, or visit the link there, tnusa.com/RSBN. Let's go to our next sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. MyPillow.com is it. MyPillow.com/RSBN. Of course, a lot of products that are awesome on MyPillow.com/RSBN. And I said this yesterday, but maybe we'll be able to do it today. Do you own a MyPillow product? Yes or no? So if you want to put it in the chat right now, we might not need to pull the chat up for that because the director and our crew here is able to see what everyone's saying. I can't right now because I'm looking at you. I'm looking at the camera. So MyPillow.com/RSBN. So once again, have you purchased a MyPillow product, or do you, that's the question. So just yes or no, or say you love MyPillow, or whatever you want to say in there. And the director, I'm sure, will feed me some information here through the earpiece and let me know what you guys are saying out there. Usually we pull up the screen for the live chat, but we've got a lot to get to today, of course, a lot of interviews, but also a lot of news to get to as we get ready to see the president coming up in just about an hour and 2 minutes. So we're looking at 62 minutes until Camp David is the live venue for this 13th cabinet meeting for President Donald J. Trump. Director, have you seen anybody say yes? Okay, so we'll get back to the MyPillow thing a bit later. Also, let's go now to a new video released by the Small Business Administrator, Kelly Loeffler, clip number 5.
America's small business story starts on the factory floor. To fuel the arsenal of freedom in World War II and the Korean War, Washington created the Small Defense Plants Administration, acknowledging that the vast majority of innovation and strength comes when you can build things. With the success of that model proven, when General Eisenhower became President Eisenhower, he evolved that agency into the Small Business Administration. He knew that preserving America's exceptionalism depended on its factories, its farms, and its main streets just as much as it hinged on having the world's best warfighters. The SBA grew out of America's earliest display of industrial might, a recognition that small businesses and critical industries will always be a pillar of our economy. Now today, on the 73rd anniversary of our founding, we're getting back to that legacy. This is President Trump's America First agenda, and Made in America puts our industries and our workers first. It is restoring local businesses all across our country. To meet the moment, SBA is transforming into a modern economic engine. Our new centralized SBA.gov brings capital, counseling, and small business tools into a single, easy-to-use platform. Our new website offers a manufacturing and critical industries hub, and entrepreneurs can quickly identify sources for growth capital, equipment financing, or a local advisor to help them grow, hire, and succeed. This is a new day at the SBA. We're celebrating free enterprise and putting our nation's innovators at the center of America's economic strength. A story that started under President Eisenhower is becoming even stronger under President Trump. And we're proud to help the United States become a nation of builders again, because small business is big business for America.
And speaking of business, we were asking, or I was asking a number of people about MyPillow and do you own a MyPillow product? And we checked it out on YouTube and of course our home on Rumble. We heard yes, 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 yes. So everybody, it seems like they own a product from MyPillow. So if you want to get an extra product, mypillow.com/RSBN. And the director himself just told me that he has not gotten a MyPillow product yet. And so while Kelly was sharing that message there, which is a video, of course, that we saw the other day and wanted to play for you, I told him, hey, you got to get those Giza Dream Sheets or get something because they're really good products. mypillow.com/RSBN. And then the director said he's going to buy the whole catalog. He's going to get all of it. So, hey, cool. Good stuff. Great sponsor here on Right Side. Just having a little bit of fun on this Friday, July 31st. Can you believe it's July 31st? I felt like it was July 4th 2 seconds ago. We were talking about the, USA, America, Freedom 250, so much building up to that. And now it's already going to be August tomorrow. Dog Days of Summer. We'll be talking maybe about that sponsor a little bit later as well when it comes to the free USA dog gift. Not sure if it's a sponsor for today or not, but we'll get to it. So there is this video out there that a lot of people are seeing, not only in our country, but across the earth. Tens of thousands, if not more, Moroccan migrants, and maybe from some other countries, flooding the shores of Spain in what based and conservative Europeans are calling a mass migrant invasion. Let's take a look at two videos from the past couple days. Clip 6. It's almost PTSD a little bit from the videos that we saw from the mass migration invasion of our country under Biden. For more on this, let's go to Pennsylvania with Ambassador Carla Sands. Thank you so much for joining us, Carla.
Oh, Matthew, it's great to be with you. Those shocking videos, those poor people in Spain, and we saw what happened under President Biden with the unchecked migration and the killings of so many American citizens and the mayhem and the death and crime that they brought. That's what Spain is now getting under this socialist leadership, where President Trump is saying, please save your civilization and stop this, secure your borders.
Exactly. And not only Spain, we're looking at various countries in Europe. And I'm sure, I know, and we've seen videos, social media videos, and other news networks internationally, that there are actual patriots, that people are just like you and me that love freedom, but they were born there in Europe, right? Or they were born anywhere in the world, really. It's really the world, it's really the free world versus tyrannical ways. But the point is, we're seeing that in other countries too, aren't we, Carla?
Well, we are. You know, when you bring in immigrants that don't share your values, into these high trust societies that have generous social welfare programs that are highly developed with their rich countries, and you bring in people from very primitive, corrupt countries, they bring their ways with them. And we love people. You know, God said love everyone, but the fact is not everybody is the same. People from places like Somalia, corrupt, very corrupt. They're pirates. People from India, very high corrupt society. We love our Indian legal immigrants, but we don't want them to bring corruption that's endemic in India into the United States. That's not welcome. You have to embrace the American way. It's the same thing in Spain. Spain has this rich, centuries-long, millennia culture that is a wonderful place. I get chills because I love Spain and the Spanish people. It's a Christian nation. And these mostly Muslim migrants, unskilled mostly, are going to bring crime and corruption with them, as well as attempting to install Islam as the religion and the governance in Spain and across Europe.
Well, the governance, specifically Sharia law, right? We know in our country, thank God for the United States Constitution as the law of the land. We don't want any other law here. And it really isn't, like, even outside of religion, outside of all where people are from and all those things, we want, I think, again, it comes back down to the free world from people from all around the world, right? Love yes. Freedom, love most likely God, or have a faith, or want the best for their family. And then it's this small crew of people that are trying to dictate the globe, globalists, right? And so we're facing that here in this country too. Can you believe that socialism, somebody the other day, Bethany Miller, the managing editor at Conservator, she said, socialist New York City. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, she's right. Can you believe that we're saying the word socialist New York City, or even communist?
Right. The greatest capitalist city in the world is becoming socialist under Zoran Mandami. And you're right, it's this red-green alliance of Islam, which means submission, and Marxist. And so you have the communists and the I would say the Islamists, meaning they really want to install Islam as the governance here in the United States. They win over communists because they cut their necks. It happened in Iran when they aligned. Well, the mullahs killed the communists and they took over. And that's what is intended in the US. And the sad thing is that they're using our Constitution and our openness and our laws against us. And here's why. Our Constitution was written for Christians. We are a Christian nation, and they're using our laws against us of religious freedom and saying, well, it's just religious freedom, but it's not religion, it's governance. And we cannot have parallel governance in our country. We have the United States laws. We do not have Sharia law. We do not allow this religion, which is really governance, to gain control in the United States. And it's now taken over some cities in New Jersey, in Texas, and they're creating these nuclei of its housing, a mosque, and various civil buildings, civil society buildings, and schools. And they're creating these nodes where they will attempt to make a parallel society. And this has happened in France, it's happened in Sweden, where now police officers need backup to even go into some of these neighborhoods. And so we don't want this in the United States, and the local governments must support the American citizens that say, we don't want this. We don't have parallel governance in the United States. That's sedition, that's not legal.
We need a revival in this country and around the world because as time goes on, Carla, and I know you would agree with that It's only getting closer to the return of Jesus. I mean, we could talk about that on a totally different page right now, because it's wild to see a lot that's going on out there. But let's bring it back to right this second, because I don't think he's coming back today. If he comes back today, great.
But we're ready.
Go. We're ready, exactly. But President Trump, he keeps on keeping on. This morning, as his 13th cabinet meeting of his second administration, he just doesn't stop, does he, Carla?
He doesn't. I don't know anyone of any age that has the energy President Trump has. And thank God he has all those battle scars from his business deals over the years that have made him so tough that he can deal with the worst of the worst around the world and keep us safe, but also be building our economy. And I know people are feeling pain because of the Iran war, and it's costing more to fill our tank and more to buy things, because when energy prices go up, the price of everything goes up. But the fact is, we will not be hit by a nuclear warhead from Iran or be held hostage in our governance and in our activities as a country, because Iran is nuclear armed. President Trump is not going to let it happen. He's knocked it back, and he's not going to let these rogue, evil people close the Strait of Hormuz. So he is working actively to make sure that we have peace and prosperity in the U.S.
Speaking of President Trump, I mean, you just have to look at 2015, 2016, and you knew at that point that he's going to hit back. The media thought, oh, we run the show, we can get you on gotcha questions. And then President Trump was so trained in media with all of his experience over the years.
Was a TV star, Matthew.
Exactly. Not only a TV star, but just within seeing how the media treated his father and certain things and just stuff that was going on. He gets it. But the point is, he is a fierce fighter since day one. And then we saw that on J13. Just imagine that situation happening and he stands up and says, fight, fight, fight to the American people. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, and I'll just take you back to January 6th, where all those networks took his words and hid them, where he said peacefully and patriotically protest. Yeah. He has always called for his followers to be peaceful, unlike the Democrats. And I will just say this, Matthew, we need a good, strong, America-loving Democrat Party. We only have two parties in this country. And if we have one that goes off the rails and doesn't believe in our government, that wants to take away the presidency, the Supreme Court, and the Senate and become a Marxist dictatorship, if we have someone like that come into power, our beautiful country and freedoms as we know it will go away. So we really need Democrats, the Democrat mainstream, to stop the train of the socialists that are taking over. They're apologizing and supporting and saying, oh, we need to have a big tent. It would be like the Republicans embracing Nazis. We don't. And so we need the Democrats to go back to sanity and really be the adults in their party and stop these people who have I think that they're really evil, and they need to stop it now.
Speaking of evil, Anthony Fauci, he had this so-called testimony. I don't know if you heard about this the other day on Capitol Hill.
I watched it.
Exactly. Dr. Evil himself, Anthony Fauci, pleading the fifth 111 times. Your thoughts?
The father of lies, and to be outrageous and bring these expensive lawyers with him. Is our tax dollars paying for his defense? Because these were activities that he did under his official responsibility. So we need to make sure that this is on him, not on us. Those very expensive lawyers he had in there. So he had an obligation to testify because he was pardoned by Biden an hour before President Trump took the oath
Carla,
of office.
let's stop there, because what you just said there is so important. Think about this. Auto pen, so not even President Biden's signature. No. Then Biden's wasn't even elected legitimately. Let's be honest about that, because we have the evidence and receipts. So that's a double whammy there on this whole pardon thing with Fauci. But we'll see what happens with that. But please continue. Sorry about cutting you off.
No, not at all. So many of us looked to Dr. Fauci early on in the pandemic to say, okay, what should we do so that our parents don't die, so people don't get sick? But then we saw him really become very, very self-aggrandizing. We saw him hide the truth, understanding that, I saw classified documents. I knew where that virus had come from. And so when I would see him stand at the podium and lie to the people, I understood that this was a bad man. And when he talked about the vaccines as if they were going to help people, but if you looked at the actual backup, it wasn't true. I saw him just gaslighting the American people, talking about masks, yes, masks, no masks. This is a bad man who just wanted to be famous and rich, and he was trying to self-enrich himself using taxpayer-funded employees to get him money. That is absolutely illegal. And he defied the Senate. He was supposed to come in and testify, and instead he pled the fifth over 100 times. He belongs in prison. The American people need him to be in prison. And I think that the people that enabled him should also come before the Senate and be held accountable. Deborah Birx wrote in her book about how she lied to President Trump. Is that legal? I think we need to get to the bottom of this. And I think that the people of the United States deserve this. He was collaborating with the Chinese scientists on gain of function, which Obama told him to stop.
Wow.
Yeah, outrageous.
It is outrageous. I think of one word. I think of corruption. And
Yes.
corruption is what would take down this country if the wrong people are in charge. And he was in charge for a while. Anyway.
It's terrible, and he must be held accountable. He can't get off for what he did.
I believe that the mass majority of the country agrees with you, even Democrats that are at least moderate, if there are any anymore. And another thing that 80+%, 90+% agree with is the Save America Act. I can't conduct an interview with you without bringing up the Save America Act. So how bad do you want to see this key legislation become law for our country? We have about a minute.
Yeah, so many of your viewers, I'm sure, agree. We have to have secure elections. This is a nonpartisan issue. And so when we look at how many senators are getting behind, they're willing to give up this so-called August recess, and stay there. Now they need to start speaking. So they need to go on the floor and they need to talk about it and talk about it nonstop until the Democrats are on record that they don't want secure elections. Let's let their phones burn up from their constituents that want them to pass the Save America Act, proof of citizenship and voter ID. And that is going to really secure our elections. So Matthew, I'm with you. We need to pass the Save America Act, call your senator, tell him to join the Patriots.
Exactly. That's what President Trump's been saying at the end of his various speeches over the past couple speeches in Georgia and in Michigan. Ambassador Carla Sands, thank you for what you're doing for the country and your friendship to the network. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you. All right, there you go. So great to speak with Carla once again here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's go to a couple sponsors here on RSBN. Let's go with actually Birch Gold first, as we'll be tossing to an all-family pharmacy interview in just a second. We wouldn't be celebrating America 250 if it wasn't for a strong foundation set by the framers. Alexander Hamilton built America's financial foundation on the principle of sound, stable money, a principle later embodied by the gold standard. However, of course, we abandoned that discipline back in '71 and have since seen inflation erode the dollar's value. So what is the foundation of your savings? Is it gold or something that can be shaken, disrupted, or devalued? Birch Gold Group has been helping Americans solidify their savings with gold for the past 15 years. They'll help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, and you can learn how gold fits into your portfolio by simply texting that word, Trump, to 989898. You'll receive a free no-obligation info kit. You'll have that A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews. If you let Birch Gold help you build your foundation, of course, with gold, that's the kind of company that you're working with there. Great stuff. Text the word Trump to 989898. Again, Trump to 989898. And you've probably been hearing about that cyclospora parasite that's been making headlines lately. Health officials have been investigating this outbreak that has now been reported in 31 states. The parasite can cause all sorts of terrible symptoms: stomach cramps, severe diarrhea, nausea, fatigue. It's also really a good reminder that unexpected illnesses can happen, which is why it's important to have a pharmacy you can count on for easy access to essential medications and physicians that can provide a prescription when you need it. And that's really where All Family Pharmacy comes in, because they've made healthcare simple. You can order medications on their website and get the prescription from their doctors if needed. Then your medications are shipped directly to your door. They offer antibiotics like Bactim, B-A-C-T-I-M. This is something commonly recommended for this parasite infection. They also have other anti-parasitic medications, everyday maintenance medications, allergy medications, and hundreds of other prescriptions. So all you have to do is visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Get that 10% off at checkout with the RSBN 10 promo code, and you can give them a call too. If you have any questions, 561-717-6794. We have a couple more interviews coming up as we get ready to see President Trump at Camp David, 70 miles northwest of the White House. But let's go to the owner of All Family Pharmacy, Michael Kunzler, one of our great sponsors here on RSBN. Let's go to the owner of All Family Pharmacy, Michael Kunzler, joining us live right now. Michael, thank you so much for coming back here on Right Side. I know we've been talking about that Cyclospora parasite. I was doing some research and I see that, to your guys' point, more than 30 states are dealing with this kind of, I guess you would call an outbreak.
Yeah, so it seems like it's getting worse and worse as we go along. So, we're always encouraging people to just stay prepared. Specifically with the Bactrim DS medication, it's an antibacterial medication that has shown or proven to fight this Cyclospora bacteria that's coming from these parasites.
It's wild to see this happening. We see that the so-called epicenter would be in Michigan, and then numerous states throughout the union. Again, 31 states dealing with this parasite. So then from there, specifically this Bactrim that you're talking about, for people that have no idea about medication, and I know that we usually have sometimes the pharmacist on to talk to us, but can you talk to us about what that actually does to help kick that parasite out?
Yeah, so it basically works on the same pathway as the Cyclospora parasite, where it's actually going to block that pathway or starve the parasite of its protein or amino acids. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow your immune system to flush out the parasite, which is, a positive benefit. That's usually how anti-parasites work. We starve the parasite, it kills itself, and then our immune system flushes it out. And that is what will prevent all of these horrible symptoms that are associated with it, and as well as other parasitic conditions. And so it's important to fight it early. And the reason for that is a lot of cases that go untreated, they last longer. They even say weeks, if not months. And so this is not something that you want to be lingering around your body.
Yeah, definitely. And I wonder how it's really transmitted. Is this something airborne? Is this something if you touch the door at a store and you get the same germ? I mean, and then on top of that, I want to go over some of those symptoms. And then on top of that, I want to know about the fact that you were saying it stops it in its tracks versus symptoms where they get covered, like ibuprofen, right? Will cover the symptom, really won't stop things in its tracks, right? I mean, could you talk to us about the difference of that? I know it's a lot right there, but we're consuming a lot of information with this parasite.
Yeah, so stopping it in its tracks, killing off the parasite will stop the symptoms. Ibuprofen, hydration, probiotics. Probiotics really just going to, kind of clear up the issue at the underlining of the stomach lining. But when it comes to actually killing off the parasite, you're really going to get rid of all of the symptoms instead of just kind of burying them for a 4 to 6 hour period. And, ibuprofen is not one that we would suggest, as it would probably hurt your stomach more than it would help it. But yeah, these are foodborne illnesses. It's similar to, like what happens in the food poisoning. It's treat the symptoms right away so that it's not lingering, because it does more harm to your body as the parasite lingers on. And if you ever had a parasite infection, if you ever worked with somebody within the parasite infection, they're not fun, and they do last a little bit of time. And throughout that period of time, it is very uncomfortable. And why we're big proponents of just being prepared, stopping it in its tracks right away. Don't let this last longer than a few hours. And then once you kick the full symptoms within 24 to 48 hours, we continue treatment to make sure that nothing else is there. Traditionally, the Bactrim, our doctors prescribe it 7 to 10 days. It is recommended to finish out treatment as you do with any antibiotic. You finish out the treatment as things can prolong past a few days. Once we kill it, we need to make sure that everything is cleared within 7 to 10 days.
So food poisoning and cyclospora parasite, is that just the technical word for food poisoning, or you're saying this is something totally different that you're saying isn't, maybe you vomit or you have to go to the bathroom after you get hit with food poisoning and it goes away in just a little bit. You're saying that this would be something that could last longer than a food poisoning incident?
Yeah, because it's a parasite. It's in your body, it's in your intestines, and it's just going to cause nothing but issues within your stomach. And so that's where people are getting the watery diarrhea, the dehydration, the upset stomach, the pain, the discomfort. There's a lot of, associated symptoms with this parasite. And if you don't clear a parasite, these things can spread. It could get worse. And that's why they're saying if it's not treated right away, it could prolong into months worth of treatment, which is not something you want to do, especially when it comes down to antibiotics. Antibiotics are used for a 5 to 10 day period, and that's it. We clear the infection and we move past it. If you don't clear the infection spreads. And that's when people start to get hospitalized. You start to go on IVs for longer treatments of hydration. It is not fun. Bactrim DS is a very cheap medication. It's $20, $25. I mean, if you come through us, you could purchase just the medication separately in itself. You don't have to buy one of these $300 kits just to get one drug. You come through us, you can customize your order. You can just buy the Bactrim, get the doctor fee, have it shipped to your house right away, and you have it for when you need it. You don't need a big fancy kit. A lot of those antibiotics will not work against this. The one thing you got to keep in mind, as our physicians and our pharmacists have recommended for me to inform people of, is that if you have a sulfur allergy, you cannot take Bactrim. There are backup options to Bactrim, like ciprofloxacin, which is in case you have a allergy to sulfur. But these are things that you need to contact a professional about, whether it's one of our pharmacists or the medical doctor.
So if someone was to prepare for this, we know the medicines for that, right? But how about for something like a food poisoning? I mean, it's something that's a bit more common year round. Obviously this parasite gets out of here quick, but it's obviously not yet. But do you know anything that would be prescribed for preparation for food poisoning? Because I've had that myself. It was awful. It was a quick run, but man, the sweating, the headache, the higher heart rate, going to the bathroom, vomiting, all the things after I had this slice of pizza at this place in New Jersey. I'm just being honest. It's what happened right after it. It was one of those where the slices are sold right there at the top of the pie there, and I just said, I'll take one of those. And boy, it hit me good. But my point is, anything that we can do with All Family Pharmacy just to be really prepared for any kind of medical situations.
So something in that instance, a lot of our doctors and pharmacists recommend just waiting it out, unfortunately. What I would suggest is, working on creating a safer environment in your stomach, like starting a probiotic daily. We do have our own probiotic that we sell that you could test out if people like it. A lot of people are ordering it, especially when they're antibiotics. You do need a probiotic if you're taking an antibiotic. We want to protect the stomach lining. It is very important to do that, protecting your stomach. A lot of illnesses come from stomach issues. So that's one way that we can work on that. And just staying hydrated, just keeping your body maximum capacity for your immune system and everything. It's important to have a very strong immune system for instances like this, food poisoning, or one of these cyclospora parasite bacterias, where your body has the ability to actually fight this thing. While we're using an antibiotic to kill it, your body is unable to flush it, get it out of your system, get you back on your feet within 24 to 48 hours, no problems. So it is very important for those few steps is hydration, probiotics, and then whatever bacteria it is, we have to figure out an antibiotic that'll be used best for it.
Well, that's what's great about you guys with, if I have those questions, I could just call, and I mean, I can go online too, but I have that number, which I want to share with everybody. It might be on the screen right now, but let me share that, 561-717-6794. If you have questions about anything when it comes to medical and prescriptions and all that, this is the crew to go to because they know what's up with this stuff. And I like the freedom aspect of you guys, right? Back in the day in 2020, the doctors were like, oh, we're not going to give ivermectin. And then you guys were like, well, you should give people choice, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, right now you go to your PCP doctor and you hear about Bactrim DS being a positive antibiotic to be used for cyclospora, your doctor's not going to prescribe it for you for in case you need it. They're going to wait till you're sick to then tell you to come into the office. So with us, you can actually stay prepared. So if you were to hit a bad batch of lettuce, any produce, and you feel those symptoms coming on, you have the medication ready to go. There is no delay. There is no 24 to 48 hour delay with your doctor and one of these corporate chain pharmacies. We have the medication. We have purchased thousands and thousands of tablets ahead of time. This is becoming a very popular item right now because people want to stay ahead of the curve in case something happens to them. You never know, but sometimes it's best to just be prepared for yourself, for your family. This thing is infecting children. We've always had the suspension available. We do have it for children. If you're weary about giving a child antibiotics, we always suggest speaking with a medical professional, like one of our physicians, one of our pharmacists, as they can guide you in the right direction. It is very important to have that conversation with a medical professional when it comes to talking about antibiotics with children. And, we do carry a lot of that as well, because we want the whole family to be prepared in case something happens.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Right now, 10% off with the RSBN 10 promo code. And Michael, thanks again for spending time with us. Before I let you go, can you tell us about some of the previous sales or big things that you guys have had? How has people been reacting to some of the various things out there? What's the feedback that you're getting there at AFP?
We've run a ton of sales. We always do, our annual buy one, get one free sale, and people love it. It's tremendous. Our phones don't stop ringing. Our emails are, backed up. We try to keep on top of it as best as possible. It is a great opportunity for people to stock up. We do a lot of these biohacking sales. We're introducing a lot of great medications like NAD+ to the market, where we know it's going to be a big hit because we see it on our end. And we see how popular it is out there, especially since Hollywood and all these famous actors and actresses were the first ones to get access to it because they have the best doctors in the world. They have the most money. They can pay for all this stuff, no problem. So we've introduced a lot of these products over the last year or two to the public, and we're going to continue running sales like that to give people that option to try it, because we believe NAD+ and other biohacking medications are the future, and it's giving people the ability to fight a lot of these illnesses because it's also bringing up your immune system. It's giving you energy. It's giving you better sleep, better rest, better recovery. All of that accumulates to your immune system and being able to fight off these stupid bacteria that are going around, all this COVID nonsense, all the flu. It giving people the ability not to have to get a flu vaccine, but to using natural immunity to fight this stuff.
Awesome stuff. And speaking of sales, RSBN 10 right now, 10% off, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Michael, thank you again for joining us here on Right Side.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Definitely. Great sponsor right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, All Family Pharmacy, as we have in just a little bit the live feed at Camp David. And we'll be going there live as soon as we see that feed here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Of course, the 13th cabinet meeting for the president. And we were just discussing off camera a little bit here at the network if this will start on time, which is in 27 minutes from now. We both, the director and I, don't think it will start right at 11. We don't think it'll start in 26 minutes now. Only reason why for me is because I think that it takes a lot for all the cabinet, all those members, to get at Camp David, seated, ready to go, the cameras, all the things. But you never know. We'll see what happens. Maybe it will start right at 11. Who knows? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Let's go to a few of our sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, including Tax Network USA. If you have any back taxes, or maybe you forgot to file, or it's just a stressful time financially and all the things, and it just builds up and adds up, and you're like, how in the world am I going to pay that tax bill? This is the company that will get you to pay dirt. tnusa.com/RSBN. Give them a call, 877-479-6503, because however your tax issue started, the outcome is still the same. Your balance is not going down. Penalties are growing, interest compounds, and the headaches continue. And the IRS, they're not waiting. They're enforcing collections through a number of means. So this is where Tax Network USA comes in. With more than 15 years in business, there hasn't been a tax case they haven't seen or resolved, and they specialize in tax controversies and help taxpayers nationwide simply get back on track by resolving back taxes and unfiled returns once and for all. Whether you owe $1,000, $10,000, or even more, their team has resolved more than $1 billion in tax debt. They can do the same for you, but you have to call now. They're offering a free investigation call with the IRS, and after that investigation, they put a clear case plan in place to resolve your tax problem and get you back on track. This is really about using your legal rights to take control before the government sets the terms for you. So you don't have to wait for another IRS letter or a frozen bank account. Just give them a call there, 877-479-6503, or visit tnusa.com/RSBN. We are 25 minutes from the top of the hour. If you'd like to donate to Right Side, all you have to do is go to rsbnetwork.com/donate. rsbnetwork.com/donate. All right. We aired a video earlier about mass migration in Spain, as we see with Morocco. We've seen that before here in the States, haven't we? So joining us now to talk more about mass migration is VETCOM CEO Kate Monroe, who knows a bit about defending our border, and she also created an organization called Border Vets. Thanks for joining us, Kate.
Happy to be here. I love this topic. We haven't touched on it in a moment, so let's do it.
I know, and I know that you are fired up about it. You were so fired up about it that you created an organization, and let's stop there. What was the first thing that you saw years ago that fired you up about our southern border?
Well, I think the thing that fired me up was I saw a spot on 60 Minutes where hundreds of people were coming around the border, and it said, oh, it's just down in San Diego. I thought, that's not even an hour from my house, and there's hundreds of people just pouring around the border. So I took razor wire down to the border. And when I was down at the border, about 30 times, I went out with many different networks, many different times. I saw, one time when I was down there, I saw about 200 Chinese nationals getting off of multiple buses, all of them having the same luggage. It's very obvious when you talk to the Border Patrol what is in that like-kind luggage when the cartel is dropping you off. I saw a Colombian family. They paid the cartel, and then the cartel kept them in a warehouse, and the man was crying, telling me, I wish I could tell you what they did to us. I'm just so happy to be in the United States. I saw some Turkish immigrants cross who told me that the very next day they would be driving your kids around in Ubers. I mean, you would not believe what I saw, but I'm very sure that I witnessed trafficking of kids. Lots of people brought kids over. Clearly, those were not their kids. I know that I saw drugs come across the border. I know that I saw people come across the border from multiple countries that we do not like, that do not like us. So the fact that this is happening at a higher rate around the world just tells you they can't get in America anymore. They're going to continue to flood countries around the globe, and they need to take a stand like we did.
Isn't it? Did you see the video? This Spain video out of Morocco and Spain right there. Gibraltar right there. It's just this close, it seems, and they're able to get across there. Why do you think all of a sudden this just happened, this influx, and then this video that's making its rounds across the world?
I don't think all of a sudden it happened. I think it's been happening, and it finally caught wind. Somebody got a video of it. The video is now being proliferated. So it's like, oh, wow, there's a problem. No, there's a huge problem. I mean, I think it was over in Ireland where a young man about 18 was, I don't know if he was beaten to death or had his head chopped off or some insane thing that happened in Ireland from one of these migrants. I don't really understand when globally enough is enough. We have to be much stricter with people. We have to make it really, you have to really find out if you break into a country, no matter what country you are coming from.
Your thoughts about the Commander-in-Chief, President Donald J. Trump, as soon as he got into office, the second time around, he said it's a national emergency on the southern border, boots on the ground, the military, the National Guard, Customs Border Protection, local, county, state, federal. I mean, how many more people can you put at the border, right? And the northern border in some ways as well. What do you think about all that?
Well, I think that the moment, so the week before Trump got in, I went to go see what is the volume coming across the border. And then I'm going to come the week after he gets in office and see the volume coming across the border. Do you know that the volume the week before and the week after was the same? And you know why that was? Because they knew just on his word that they were not allowed to come in the country anymore. So it wasn't that you needed a new, a new wall, you needed new policy, you needed to vote on and change things. You needed a new man in office. Just on his word alone, the border was shut down. As a preemptive measure, I went down to go and visit all these troops there. They were absolutely amazing. But the onslaught of migrants had already stopped when they got there. That was a show of force.
Wow. I remember
It was
seeing
amazing.
remember those videos, Eagle Pass, Texas, right across the Rio Grande?
Yeah.
But also, wasn't there, remember that one video, it kind of zoomed in, there was a fence that opened and just people were just rushing in. It's just kind of like somewhat similar to the Morocco-Spain thing.
Yeah.
Can you believe, I mean, that's the United States of America that was happening. And it wasn't just people from Central America, South America. It was literally, as you mentioned, and you saw it with your own eyes, a global invasion to our country.
Well, they're not being met with force. All it would have taken one time, you could have put the military there. If they did it one time, the migrants would have gone, oh, I guess they're closed for business. Why are we letting, even in other countries, why are you not doing a show of force? I'll tell you this right now. If you want to deputize me and the border vets and all my body men, and you want to let us come to your country armed, trust me, I will turn them around. There's no reason to let people just invade your country, unless, of course, you want it, which is what we wanted under the last administration. So it feels like maybe the higher ups there want it. I would encourage the people in those countries, if they see this, to realize I don't want it. And what am I willing to do? Do I have razor wire? Can I start border vets? You can do something.
That razor wire just being put there, obviously, as that border, anything you can do. And then you look at,
It's still there.
No, yeah, it'd be great to, it'd be great to have you do a live interview down there, right next to the, right next to the crew and some of the border vet crew. That'd be pretty awesome. Maybe we can line that up sometime in the future. But to your point about if anybody sees this around the world, well, we have seen that people from the UK and I believe Ireland and some other nations have watched, whether live, and maybe they're watching now, who knows? It's a totally different time zone, but people watch on replay. So that's what's wild about, conservative media, live streaming these days. This is something that, Kate, you and I could not do in some countries out there, including China. What's your thought about just freedom of speech and having this ability to even talk about these kind of things?
Well, we're, in fact, in the greatest nation in the entire globe. And if you live inside of, the walls of this nation, butted up by the North and South and the ocean, and while you're living here, you don't think you live in the greatest nation on earth. Trust me, there's other ones around the globe that not only wouldn't welcome you, you would not enjoy living there. So God bless this country. God bless our leadership that has allowed us. God bless the men and women who stood and took a fight. People like me who have served in the service, that 30,000 veterans that I have served, the 18 million were ready to be served. Thank God that people were willing to take a stand. But I would encourage those other countries. You are at war. You, not just your country, you and your family and your friends, you are at war. You can do more than you think. Don't go quietly into the night.
VetCom CEO Kate Monroe with the experience, the insight, the analysis. Thank you again for joining us and waking up nice and early for us. I know it's not too early, but
I woke up literally 10 minutes ago. 10 minutes ago, I was in my bed asleep. And
It is 7:42 a.m. out there. Kate, you're a rock star. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Awesome stuff with Kate Monroe here live on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's go to a couple sponsors. In the meantime, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Of course, a lot of great political trending topics out there that you can check out if you'd like, about the Save America Act, about the conflict in Iran, about Spain and Morocco, about sports, weather, faith, all sorts of topics. More than 1 million users on that site now, and that continues to grow. And there's 3 ways, of course, to get to Kalshi. Kalshi.com/RSBN. The Kalshi app or the QR code that you see right there on your screen. Great sponsor here on Right Side. Let's go to our next sponsor here on Right Side, including Cove Pure, as you see on your screen. Most of us know there's chlorine in our tap water. Sometimes we can smell it. That's pretty awful. Then sometimes we shrug and just drink it anyway because we've been told, hey, it's what keeps our water safe. But what they don't tell you is what chlorine becomes after it's added to your water. And that's why it's so important to filter your water through Cove Pure. Chlorine itself isn't even the biggest problem. Chlorine levels in your water are regulated, but what's not regulated is chemicals that form when chlorine reacts with naturally occurring organic matter from rivers, soil, and plant matter. So we're told when chlorine interacts with those particles, it creates chemical byproducts called THMs. The government itself calls THMs probable human carcinogens, and they've been linked to some awful things, disruption of your gut, but also to cancer. So those pitcher filters that you see at the store, they just won't fix this because what they do is they improve the taste of chlorine, they mask it, But THMs require something far more powerful, and that's exactly what Cove Pure is. Their clear wave reverse osmosis technology is certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants. So it's not just chlorine or THMs, it's fluoride, PFAs, pharmaceuticals. Basically, if it isn't water, if it isn't H2O, Cove Pure removes it. And this thing doesn't take up much room at all. You can see right there, it's just on the kitchen counter. Sleek design, beautiful, easy, right? And then all you have to do is plug it in and press the button if you want hot, cold, or warm water with the tap of a button. And the best part about all of this is we're hearing some great feedback too. Cove Pure, from our viewers also, has been incredible. People have been telling us that they can literally taste the difference. Clean water is one of the best investments you can make for you and your family's health. And right now they're giving RSBN viewers $250 off if you use our link. Just go to covepure.com/RSBN. Once again, clean water is one of the best investments you can make for you and your family's health. I agree with that. I'm sure RFK Jr. would agree with that as well. And a great product there. Drink pure, live pure. Covepure.com/RSBN. We are 15 minutes away from going to Camp David. So about 70 miles away from that live picture that you're seeing of the beautiful and the great Thomas Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. So 70 miles northwest of that location in the district is Camp David in Maryland. I was born in Pennsylvania, and Camp David, I think, is from where I was born, maybe 45 minutes, an hour. Actually drove through the mountains one time, just, sightseeing with some people, and was near Camp David. I didn't see it, but definitely it's, I'm sure, super secure right now, as the cabinet and the president will be meeting at Camp David here in just a little bit. So we're going to go to our next live interview here shortly, as we will go from California to the Northeast, referring to the Northeast, where the Daily Caller's Ashley Brassfield joins us now live. Of course, reporter Ashley Brassfield. Thank you so much, Ashley, for joining us here on Right Side.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely. Let's talk about that video, and what we've been talking about a lot is that mass migration happening right now in Europe. Your thoughts when you see that?
Yeah, I think it's disturbing. I think obviously, Spain just won the World Cup yesterday, or excuse me, a few weeks ago. So you're seeing this and expecting to hear, oh, these are celebrations. Well, no, that is the border of Spain and Morocco, where basically it looked like the U.S. southern border just 5 or 4 short years ago under the Biden administration. I mean, any country that has, unvetted processes and people flowing into the country unvetted, I think should be concerned for any citizen that lives there. Obviously, I think there's going to be people that say, mind your own business, America. But I think this is kind of a broader aspect here that, Europe itself has suffered from, increases of migrant migration, especially from places like Africa and the Middle East. And so I think this is kind of saying, I told you so. When you see videos like this and you see things like this happening, and it's hard to see and say when the government of Spain under Pedro Sanchez, who is the leader of the Spanish Socialist Workers Party, says we can't declare a national emergency, and therefore the city of Ceuta cannot have their emergency workforces come in and try help the situation and stop illegals from flowing into the country of Spain from Morocco. So I think there's a lot of concern, but also, it should be concerning for Europe because, any of those migrants can flow into any other country. It's not like it's the United States where it's a little harder to get from one place to another. You can go from one country to the next pretty easily by train or plane. And typically I would say the European countries tend to welcome them. Some of them, you saw Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni speak out on this issue. And as well as the EU spokeswoman, Ursula, I'm forgetting her last name currently, but it should be concern for any other European country when you're seeing a country ruled by, a socialist party, allowing this to come into the country and basically have open borders, which results in some of these people potentially coming into your own.
It's so wild. And to your point, jumping from country to country, how do we know that, the people from Morocco and other countries, they get into Spain, then like, hey, we got to Europe. Let's go next stop, the United States of America. Hopefully, they're thinking that there'll be some other president someday in the future that'll just open the borders wide open again. Thank God for President Trump with the border situation. We've seen our Customs Border Protection agents, patrol agents doing a great job, aren't they?
Right. And I think there is a humanitarian argument to be made by many on the left here that, these people are suffering in Morocco, whatever may be here. But I mean, what you saw yesterday in that video, I think was anything but humanitarian and coming from land and sea, bringing things over, coming unvetted. It was obviously chaos. So I think that alone should make people concerned.
To your point, if you look at the video, this is a great point you just made. I just thought of it now. When the people are coming across to Spain, right? A lot of them were men in their 20s,
Yes.
30s. There were no women, no children, no elderly. It wasn't like people were struggling. Oh, we got to get to a better place. No, these are guys that look fit to me, more fit than I am, rushing into Spain. And it's the same thing we saw down on the southern border. And that's what's great about what President Trump has done and is still doing as Commander-in-Chief. Let's shift now to Dr. Fauci, sorry. What's your reaction to him pleading the fifth 111 times on Wednesday?
I think the American people were unsatisfied. And as a reporter, I was hoping, obviously, for more for reporting. But at the same time, I mean, Dr. Fauci was one of the most, sought after media figures during the COVID pandemic. I mean, you saw him talking and giving advice constantly. So I think there was a very obvious change of tone when pleading the fifth and, taking advice from counsel before, the Senate Homeland Security Committee. So it's something that I think disturbed a lot of us who obviously were silenced during COVID-19 because of misinformation. And, if you didn't follow what Dr. Fauci or the federal government said, and, a lot of these things have, come out in recent years. And it's sad that it's taken as long as it has, because I think it's not garnered the same attention as it did at the time, as the whole entire country was shut down. You were called a conspiracy theorist. Many Americans, normal Americans were, for wanting to go outside their house, not wear a mask, take a experimental vaccine at the time. And I know there's pushback sometimes for that on the administration, but I mean, that's what we were dealing with during the COVID-19 years. And to see somebody, a bureaucrat like Dr. Fauci, who's been on the taxpayer dime, basically say, I'm pleading the fifth because I don't need to give anyone answers or incriminate myself. But as we all know, he received a pardon from the Biden administration, a preemptive one for any possible crimes he could be charged for. But, this opens up a contempt of Congress charge. I think the most disturbing part about that hearing, I'll point this out, is, some of the senators, Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma, were profusely thanking Fauci for being there. And mind you, Dr. Fauci was summoned by a subpoena after denying and coming in, voluntarily. So I think that should bring some concern to a lot of Americans that, senators, praising him, thanking him for coming in to sit before them to plead the fifth. I don't think that's satisfactory. And I mean, at least Rand Paul had some tougher questions that millions of Americans like to hear. But of course, we didn't get answers to those.
Exactly. And Senator Josh Hawley, and the list goes on. And Fauci was there under duress, as the senators were saying as well. If you could hold 1 second, Ashley, as we go to a couple ad breaks here, we'll come right back to you. I want to ask you more about the whole 2020 situation when it comes to COVID and the election. But let's go to the switching on the programming as we go to some of our sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's go to All Family Pharmacy. You've probably been hearing about the cyclospora parasite that's been making headlines lately. Health officials have been investigating this outbreak that has now been reported in 31 states. We're told the parasite can cause all sorts of awful symptoms. It's also a good reminder that unexpected illnesses can simply happen, which is why it's important to have a pharmacy you can count on for easy access to essential medications and physicians that can provide a prescription when you need it. That's where All Family Pharmacy comes in. They've made healthcare simple. Now, you can order medications on their website and get the prescription from their doctors if needed. Then your medications are shipped directly to your door. And they offer antibiotics like Bactim, which is commonly recommended for this infection, along with antiparasitic medications, everyday maintenance meds, allergy medications, and hundreds of other prescriptions. So just visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use that RSBN10 promo code. You get that 10% off. Also, give them a call, 561-717-6794 if you have any questions. Great American independent pharmacy right there, All Family Pharmacy. Let's go to our next sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Of course, we wouldn't be celebrating America 250 if it wasn't for our strong foundation set by the framers. Alexander Hamilton built America's financial foundation on the principle of sound, stable money. a principle later embodied by the gold standard, of course, but we abandoned that discipline in 1971 and have since seen inflation erode the dollar's value. So the question is, what is the foundation of your savings? Is it gold or something that could be shaken, disrupted, or devalued? Birch Gold Group has been helping Americans solidify their savings with gold for the past 15 years. They'll help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. Learn how gold fits into your portfolio by texting the word Trump to that number, 989898. You'll receive a free, no-obligation info kit. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews, let Birch Gold help build your foundation with gold. All you have to do is text the word Trump to 989898. All right, it is 5 minutes until the top of the hour. Of course, we'll be going to Camp David for President Trump's 13th cabinet meeting of his second administration. Joining us once again, Ashley Brassfield reported for Daily Caller and, of course, started her conservative career right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And we were talking about, Dr. Fauci and all of that. Prior to even when I started here at Right Side, I started here in September of 2022. And I know that, you weren't at the Caller then, you weren't at RSBN then either. So what was it like for you and your family or your friends back in the day when COVID happened and we're told to wear masks and all that? What was that experience like for you on a personal level?
Right. I was at the University of South Carolina playing beach volleyball when COVID first hit. So, I missed my basically second half of my freshman year of college due to all of this. So quite a time to be in college and a student at the time, as well as a student athlete. But as you can imagine, there was a lot of conversation around the vaccinations going on about myocarditis, the effects there because of it being an experimental vaccination and the approval process being expedited. So I think the conversations were there. Also, just the idea of wearing, masks while you're working out outside in the open air playing volleyball. I think you just kind of remember back to that time and how ridiculous it was. And then for those of us who were not vaccinated, we were spitting in, large tubes 5 feet away from each other, being tested on a weekly basis. So if you need, this hits a special place for me of having to live through that. And I know for a lot of Americans, it's the same way. But, you see this diary of Dr. Fauci. And mind you, this was no, stolen diary out of a house or anything. This was on federal servers that he, kept these, entries that he would make. So I think the smugness from this, whether it be the hearing, the diary entries. I mean, Dr. Fauci even talked about the Daily Caller and gave us a nice little shout out in one of the entries at the time. So, whether him saying that, his fame has been expedited and, being just so glad that he became famous off of it, you would at least like to see him saying that, I wanted to harm Americans through this vaccination. No, he just kind of has narcissistic qualities that you can tell through the journal entries here. And so that's what you see, and you were able to see the real side of him in a lot of ways and what he was telling to the public. So there was two sides there. But, as somebody who lived through that time, I think it just makes you a little bit angrier and refuels the fire of what we felt at that time just a few short years ago.
It's so true. And the thing that is it's all terrible. But the whole Wuhan lab situation and just almost like you see this in a movie script maybe. A doctor concocts this thing and it spreads throughout the world and there's these globalists and these evil people. And then people would say, well, that's a conspiracy theory. But then guess what? To those that say it's a conspiracy theory, it's called evidence and receipts and facts and truth. So no, it's not a conspiracy theory. So you can shove it where the sun don't shine, right? I mean, come on. Hey, it's Friday, Ashley, so we got to let our hair down a little bit.
Hey, I'm proud to wear my little tinfoil hat if that's what that is at this point.
Yeah, no, for especially this, because we all dealt with so much during COVID. And then not only that, let's be very serious things that people were dealing with when it comes to mental health and the suicides and just, kids that are 5, 6, 7, you have to wear a mask at school and these woke teachers, it's just awful.
Right.
And I'm getting to a point because for me, I'll just say this. I was working in mainstream media. I'm not going to say any details outside of that other than somebody said because I chose not to. I'm allowed to choose not to get a vaccine if I don't want one. Simple as that. I've never had a flu vaccine in my life. That's just me.
Right.
I was called, check this out, by a colleague in the media. Because you remember, this is why, and Ashley, I'm going to be very transparent with you and people that are watching right now. This is why I love to slam against the left wing. Because I was called a terrorist because I wouldn't get the vaccine. And this person was rude, and this person was highly unprofessional. And then I was cornered a couple times because being, a certain, they could tell I'm probably conservative. That's probably why I didn't connect with them so much. Let's be honest about that. So I'm letting this off my chest right now. But, and to be questioned during commercial breaks by people, why wouldn't you, see what I'm saying? That's the crap I had to deal with in the mainstream media. So F the mainstream media. I'm on the right side of history, Ashley, and so are you.
Yeah, and I'll make this last point too. I think the cancel culture of that time period really gave momentum for specifically the GOP, Republicans, and conservatives going into that 2024 election. They were fed up. They were sick of it. And the reason being is that cancel culture, the misinformation, the fact checking of social media at the time. I think that's why Republicans have to keep that in mind going forward. There is a segment that, you can disagree still and you want to have this big tent idea in the Republican Party. That should be the lesson learned from that time period, and that should remain. And that's what made us different from the left wing, I think, in a lot of ways. And
then they used COVID to screw us over in the election in 2020. With the mail-in ballots. So, don't get me started on all that. All right, and finally, there's this piece of legislation that we've been talking about for a bit on Right Side. Not sure if you ever heard of this, Ashley, but the Save America Act. Your thoughts about just getting that thing passed? We need that thing passed, don't we?
Yeah, there's so many thoughts. There's a lot going on right now. Of course, the question of whether the Senate will stay in session instead of going to recess this August. And, the president has put a lot of pressure on Majority Leader John Thune. And he seems to be somewhat willing to wait and see if there's a strategy that's going to come forward. Of course, there's really been multiple strategies laid out in the recent months. You have it attached to a stock trading ban that's gone to the Senate. You have the option of reconciliation that was being led by now the late Senator Lindsey Graham. So we'll see where that goes without him leading the way on that. You have the talking filibuster, the legislative filibuster, and just really it being attached to multiple other pieces of legislation. So with the hope of going to the Senate to not get stripped. I think the most valuable of those would be reconciliation, but it's hard to say without Graham here where that will go. And, John Thune, President Trump, they've had a lot of scuffles. He's saying he doesn't have the votes. But I think the pressure on John Thune is to put pressure on senators who don't seem to be on board with that. And I think the American people are feeling that frustration. I think the president's feeling that frustration. And, it seems like, John Thune was effective in the first part of the second Trump administration with the Senate getting nominations through, but it does seem to have stalled there. So there's going to be a really big question. And the president said this too, is he the man for the job coming in November? Can he do this before midterms? There's a lot at stake here.
Exactly. Ashley, I was also thinking about the fact that last time we had you live a while ago when you were back with Right Side Broadcasting Network, you were live down there along the Gulf of America. So great to see you over there at the Daily Caller. You're doing great work. Where can people follow you on X and all of that?
Well, thank you. And yeah, it's on X at Brassfield Ashley, and then Ashley E. Brassfield on Instagram and TikTok. And then you can find our work at dailycaller.com.
Ashley Brassfield, thanks so much for joining us here on Right Side.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely. All right, it's 11:02 Eastern time here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Man, I got a little upset there, as you can see. That whole COVID thing, whew, that was tough. All right, let's go to a few sponsors as we get ready to go to Camp David to see President Trump and this 13th cabinet meeting of his second administration. Let's go to that first sponsor right now here on Right Side. You see Kalshi.com/RSBN. There are 3 ways to get there. The QR code, the app you can download, or you can go to Kalshi.com/RSBN. So 3 ways to get to Kalshi. A lot of political trending topics, of course, that you can choose from. They're right there at your fingertips. More than 1 million people on the site. A lot of people betting, trading, and just checking out polls at Kalshi.com. Let's go to our next sponsor here on Right Side. You see Cove Pure. Most of us know there's chlorine in our tap water. We smell it, shrug, then sometimes drink it anyway, because we've been told it's what keeps our water safe. But what they don't tell you is what chlorine becomes after it's added to your water. And that's why it's so important to filter your water through Cove Pure. Chlorine itself isn't even the biggest problem. Chlorine levels in your water are regulated, but what's not regulated is chemicals that form when chlorine reacts with naturally occurring organic matter from rivers, soil, and plant matter. When chlorine interacts with those particles, it creates these chemical byproducts called THMs. The government itself calls THMs probable human carcinogens, and they've been linked to disruption of your gut and also cancer. And those pitcher filters that you see at the store, they simply won't fix this because they improve the taste of chlorine, but THMs require something far more powerful, and that's exactly what Cove Pure is. Their ClearWave reverse osmosis technology is certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants. It's not just chlorine or THMs. fluoride, PFAs, pharmaceuticals are also taken out of there. So if it isn't water, Cove Pure removes it. And this thing doesn't take up much room at all. Just look at it on screen. It looks super sleek. It's easy to put right there on the countertop. You just plug it in. You can press the tap of the button there for hot, cold, or warm water. And also, the feedback on Cove Pure from our viewers has been incredible. People have told us they can literally taste the difference. Clean water is one of the best investments you can make for you and your family's health. And right now, they're giving RSBN viewers $250 off. All you have to do is go to covepure.com/RSBN. All right, it's 5 minutes after the hour. Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on RSBN.
It's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Brightside Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Brightside Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
Welcome to Rightside Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
MyPillow's second annual mega sale is finally here. Get our patented premium MyPillows that adjust your exact individual needs to give you the best sleep of your life.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
I guarantee they're going to be the most comfortable pillows you'll ever own. King size only $24.98, queen size only $19.98. Giza Dream bed sheets, the best sheets in history, as low as $29.98. Lux Pierce 6-piece towel sets, towels that actually dry you. What a concept. Now only $39.98. And our made in the USA mattresses and mattress toppers as low as $99.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. Plus free shipping options available when you order today. So don't delay, order now.
Welcome back to Rightside Broadcasting Network. Let's go to a new video from the Department of War titled The Shoulder of Giants. This is clip number 7 as we await the live feed to Camp David.
America, a people bound by faith, freedom, and opportunity. A nation worth defending. This country owes its prosperity to a long line of warriors, brave enough to stand between the land of the free and its enemies. That relentless warrior ethos is unwavering. It remains unmistakable in our sailors, our soldiers, airmen, guardians, and Marines who stand tall on the shoulders of giants. Their service has taught us not to seek war, but to prepare, to fight, and win. Peace through strength. America's War Department continues to build the most lethal fighting force on the planet. And now is the time to take up our nation's colors, to secure its future, to earn a place in the fight for the American cause. We stand today on the shoulders of giants who showed us what it means to be American. And in years to come, the shoulders the next generations stand on will be yours.
Okay, so monitoring all of the different videos that we're seeing out there on X, on Truth Social. Also, we get emails here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, just like any media outlet does, from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House, for various press guidance or press schedules. Specifically, we also received an email about the White House Government Transparency Task Force recently. Going to go over some of these details as we await that live feed in Maryland. Again, 70 miles to the northwest of the White House will be this Camp David cabinet meeting. So the White House Government Transparency Task Force has released the following fact sheet approved by the directors of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the National Security Agency, the Central Intelligence Agency, and the Department of Homeland Security, relating to President Donald J. Trump's recent declassification of documents. These documents were originally produced by elements of the United States intel community. Here's a fact per the White House Task Force. The People's Republic of China and their proxies bought, stole, or hacked as many as 220 million Americans' voter registration data. China's collection included non-publicly available data. Another fact, the declassified documents provide the official definition used by the intel community for election interference. That definition includes a foreign power's targeting of voter registration, infrastructure, or data. The definition from the documents is, quote, election influence includes overt and covert influence activities of foreign governments or actors serving as agents of or on behalf of foreign governments intended to affect directly or indirectly a U.S. election, including candidates, political parties, voters, or their preferences, specifically within voting or political processes. So election interference is a subset of election influence targeting at the technical aspects of the election, including voter registration, casting and counting of ballots, and reporting of results, end quote. Another fact from the Government Transparency Task Force through the White House, the intel community in 2022 flagged a Chinese computer network exploitation. So this computer network exploitation is a CNE. So they flagged a Chinese computer network exploitation actor as having acquired voter registration data stored on commercial websites. CNE actors typically use cyber activities to illicitly obtain data that is not publicly available. Another fact, per the president's declassification all about election integrity, the intel community documents describe the potential malign activities a foreign power can activate once it possesses American voter registration data. So here's a verbatim quote from the documents. Quote, adversaries could alter data to potentially prevent individual voters or groups of voters from voting, causing delays on election day or forcing voters to use provisional ballots. Adversaries could also use the registration data, which in some cases is also available publicly or for purchase, to tailor other interference or influence efforts. Another fact, in preparing President Trump's July 16, 2026 speech on China's election interference, and mind you, the mainstream media, of course, didn't cover a lot of that speech at all, the White House coordinated with the representatives from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Homeland Security, the Central Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The intel agencies approved the factual statements from their documents used in that in the president's speech that night. That was a couple Thursdays ago. And again, the mainstream media, they don't like truth, so they don't want to cover the commander-in-chief, the leader of the free world's speech about our elections. We understand that. We are awake to the fact that there is fake news out there, thanks to President Trump calling it all out, starting out back in 2015, 2016. Let's go to a couple sponsors as we await the Camp David live feed from Maryland. You've probably been hearing about that cyclospora parasite that's been making headlines. Health officials have been investigating this growing outbreak that has now been reported in more than half of our states, so 31 states. The parasite can cause all sorts of awful symptoms, from stomach cramps, nausea, fatigue, severe diarrhea, all this stuff. Ugh. It's also a good reminder that unexpected illnesses can happen, which is why it's important to have a pharmacy you can count on for easy access to essential medications and physicians that can provide a prescription when you need it. That's where All Family Pharmacy comes in. They've made healthcare simple. You can order medications on their website and get the prescription from their doctors if needed. Then your medications are shipped directly to your door. They offer antibiotics like Bactim, that's spelled Bactim, which is commonly recommended for this infection, along with other antiparasitic medications, everyday maintenance meds, allergy medications, and hundreds of other prescriptions. All you have to do is visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, use the RSBN 10 promo code, save 10%, and if you have any questions, give them a call at 561-717-6794. Let's go to Birch Gold Group in the meantime as well. We wouldn't be celebrating America 250 if it wasn't for a strong foundation set by the framers. Alexander Hamilton built America's financial foundation on the principle of sound, stable money, a principle later embodied by the gold standard. However, we abandoned that discipline in 1971 and have since seen inflation erode the dollar's value. So the question is, what is the foundation of your savings? Is it gold or something that could be shaken, disrupted, or devalued? Birch Gold Group has been helping Americans solidify their savings with gold for the past 15 years. They'll help you convert an existing IRA or a 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. So you can learn how gold fits into your portfolio by texting the word Trump to that number, 989898. You'll receive a free no-obligation info kit. They have that A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews. So let Birch Gold help build your foundation with gold. Just text the word Trump to that number, 989898. All right, as soon as we see that live feed to Camp David, we will take you there live here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Again, thanks so much for live streaming today, watching this maybe on replay later today or maybe over the weekend. Speaking of a replay, in case you missed it, the RNC chairman, Joe Gruters, joined us just yesterday. So we're going to play that interview, and as soon as we see the live feed to Camp David, even if it's in the middle of the interview, we'll take you right to Camp David. Joining us now on Right Side Broadcasting Network is RNC Chairman Joe Gruters. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. Let's dive right into some details how the Republican National Committee and the Florida GOP actually intervened to defend Florida's Common Sense SAVE Act.
Well, listen, like a lot of things, this governor in Florida, Ron DeSantis, stepped up as soon as he heard about it. He put this legislation forward. I'm actually in the Florida Senate. I had a chance to vote on it. And it's just common sense legislation that we're trying to pass at the national level, making sure that people have voter ID before they vote. And that, of course, that they provide proof of citizenship when they register. Something that, two things that are overwhelmingly popular amongst all demographics, no matter where they are. We put this forward. We passed it. Of course, liberal Democrat groups who are trying to cheat, lie, and steal to win these elections objected. And so we've intervened on their behalf, along with the Republican Party of Florida, who's always been a good ally of the Republican National Committee. And listen, once again, this is one of, I think, 55 lawsuits we have right now across the country where we're bringing the hammer every time these Democrat groups try to cheat. We're answering right back immediately, and we're winning a lot of these cases.
So let's go from the Sunshine State to the Badger State. I understand you guys also stepped in to defend a ballot measure in Wisconsin. Can you elaborate on that case?
Well, listen, it's just like every other case that we have where we're trying to find out ways to not gain an advantage, but to try to make sure that people are playing by the rules. Time and time again, the Democrats have... like I said, they believe the end justifies the means. They're willing to do whatever it takes to stop these or to file the lawsuits or to try to cheat. And we're bringing the hammer everywhere. And it's ballot initiative cases, it's voter ID cases, making sure that we have equal access to poll workers, making sure non-citizens can vote. Just like in New Jersey, where they just admitted they were cheating. and said it was a glitch. This is just the tip of the iceberg. It happens over and over again. So we are vigilant and we are aggressive everywhere we go.
It seems to be that case, and shocking to see, not really, with what happened in New Jersey with those 6,000 plus illegal aliens on the voter rolls there. Also, in a story we've been talking about quite a bit here at Right Side, not sure if you know this, sir, but can you give us an inside peek at what the RNC midterm national convention will be like? I know President Trump said this is going to be a truly historic event.
Well, listen, one other thing to talk about that New Jersey case with 6,000 non-citizens being found on the voter rolls and over 400 voted. Like I said, that's just the tip of the iceberg, what we know about. Their governor, Cheryl, said it was a glitch, but she knew it when she called Trump a liar. I mean, shame on her for what she did. But listen, we're moving forward. This midterm convention is part of our overall plan to defy history. It's been over 150 years. Only 4 times has the party in charge been able to hold power. We have a tall task in front of us, but I think that we're going to be able to do it. But it starts by doing things a little bit different. One of those things is this midterm convention. I call it a Trumpapalooza, where we'll be able to highlight all the amazing things this president has done and all the great things the president wants to do. It's going to be in Dallas, Texas, September 9th and 10th. And again, we're going to be able to bring real life stories to people with a messaging plan that will highlight how this president has gone to bat for the average American worker and how people could still achieve the American dream.
It's always good to see everyday Americans on a stage like this, a midterm national convention hosted by the RNC. It's going to be great to see that. And finally, sir, how bad do you want to see the Save America Act become the Save America law?
Listen, we've been fighting for a long time. I know the president's pushing. And let me just make it clear, the Republican National Committee exists to serve the president and the president's administration. He wants it to pass. We're behind him 100%. We've been pushing, prodding, doing everything we can. And it's a couple of holdouts on our side, but every single Democrat is united against this. And listen, this is when leadership matters. We got to step up and do the right thing. Over 80% of Americans agree in these common sense, basic ideas of making sure people have voter ID when they go vote. I mean, it was funny last week, Olive Garden introduced their never-ending pasta bowls, but they're going to require a voter ID. If Olive Garden can do it and get it right, certainly the American people could do it in their respective states when they go and vote. And of course, requiring the proof of citizenship when you vote, to me, is just common sense. And it's common sense to most Americans, no matter if you're a Republican, Independent, or Democrat. Everybody agrees that you should do that, with the exception of the elitist Democrats in D.C., because for them, it's all about power and control. And so, yes, we're fighting it every single day. But no matter what happens, if we don't pass it before November, you got to look at what the president's done. He's gone out there and endorsed a lot of these MAGA warriors from coast to coast. And we're going to have the people in place come November to make sure we pass it, that we put this law that we pass the Save America Act and we put it into law to make sure that we can preserve the democracy that we all love.
To your point, there is that momentum. I was just in Georgia the other day for President Trump's Marietta, Georgia speech. And then just the other day in Milford, Michigan. If you ask me, it seems like campaign rally season again. I mean, the crowds are electric at these events. We're seeing that momentum start and kick in even to a higher gear, aren't we, sir?
Well, listen, people love the President of the United States. He's the best showman that's ever lived in politics. And listen, he's delivered 3 times these low propensity voters that we need to win the election. That's why you see him out there on the campaign trail. He's going to continue to barnstorm the country. He's going to go to these toss-up districts. He's going to work it. He knows what's at stake. If the Democrats are somehow able to win, it's going to be investigations. It's going to be obstruction. It's going to be impeachments. It's going to be total chaos, and the presidency will basically be over. That's why we have no option other than to win. That's why we went out and recruited the best candidates. That's why we have the resource advantage, because we're raising a lot more money. We have the messaging with the president. He's going to barnstorm the country. And yes, he is the guy that could deliver us victory in November. There's nobody that could attract these voters and the energy and the enthusiasm that we see at these rallies early on will just be it's an early sign that good things are in store and that we're going to be able to unite our base and bring people together for the greater good.
I still can't believe the other night, sir. I wanted to get your reaction on the fact that President Trump does this national primetime address and some in the mainstream media say, nope, we're not airing that speech.
Well, listen, they don't want to air it because they don't want to air the truth. And they know what happened in 2020 was a debacle. And the fact that they cheated and lied and they stole their way to victory. But, you know, a lot of people don't know. I ended up becoming the election integrity chairman right after that happened for the party nationwide. And it was to make sure what happened in 2020 never happens again. And that's what the president wants. He wants to make sure that we have safe and secure elections that are fair. One citizen for one vote. It's not rocket science. It's common sense. But that's what we face. We face common sense in this election versus crazy. Common sense versus communism. We're in the battle for our lives, and we're going against people who are willing to do anything to hold on to that power and control. We can overcome it, but it's only if people come together and join their local parties and join the movement that this president has built. We have a lot of work to do if we're going to save this country, and I expect that the president, and I know he's up for it, but I expect him to travel the country and do everything humanly possible to make sure we can win these seats.
That's exactly what we're seeing here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thank you so much, sir, the RNC chairman, Joe Gruters, for joining us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, so a lot going on within the 24/7 news cycle as we await Camp David's live feed. Let's go to Kalshi.com/RSBN. And speaking of midterm elections and all of that, that's stuff you guys can check out if you'd like on Kalshi as well. So just Kalshi.com/RSBN. You can download the app if you'd like, or you could go to the QR code. 3 ways to get to Kalshi. Great sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. A lot of different topics to check out as well. If you just click that button on your phone when it comes to the app, which I have as well. So give it a try, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Let's also go to Cove Pure. Of course, most of us know there's chlorine in our tap water. We smell it and then sometimes shrug and drink it anyway because we've been told it's what keeps our water safe. But what they don't tell you is what chlorine becomes after it's added to your water. That's why it's so important to filter your water through Cove Pure. You know, chlorine itself isn't even the biggest problem. We're told chlorine levels in your water are regulated, but what's not regulated is chemicals that form when chlorine reacts with naturally occurring organic matter from rivers, soil, and plant matter. We're told when chlorine interacts with those particles, it creates chemical byproducts called THMs. So the government itself calls THMs, quote, probable human carcinogens. They've been linked to disruption of your gut. They've also been linked to cancer. So those pitcher filters that you get at the store, they just won't fix this. They improve the taste of chlorine, but THMs require something far more powerful, and that's exactly what Cove Pure is. Their ClearWave reverse osmosis technology is certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants. It's not just chlorine or THMs. Fluoride, PFAs, pharmaceuticals. If it isn't water, Cove Pure removes it. And this thing doesn't take up much room at all. All you have to do is put it on your counter, you plug it in. You don't need to call someone in to install it, anything like that. Now, the feedback on Cove Pure from our viewers has been incredible. Not only do they like the fact that you could just press the button for hot, cold, or warm with the filtered water right there, people have told us they can literally taste the difference. Clean water is one of the best investments you can make for you and your family's health. Right now, they're giving all of our viewers $250 off if you use that link, covepure.com/RSBN. Again, covepure.com/RSBN. A couple great sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. We know the president is not at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue today. He's held 12 cabinet meetings in his second administration. This will be his 13th, this time 70 miles to the northwest in Maryland at Camp David. As soon as we see that feed, we will bring it to you live. President Eisenhower was the first president to hold a cabinet meeting at Camp David back in 1955. Getting that report from Margot Martin, of course, here on X 25 minutes ago. A White House staffer, of course, a great patriot as well. And I think in 1955, real quick side note, one of my favorite movies is Back to the Future. And isn't 1955 part of the whole movie as well? 1985, 55. Anyway, we have some video of the president and some from the cabinet also arriving to Camp David, at least to the nearby landing strip. Let's take a look at that video right now, here live on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Morning.
Thank you.
How are you?
Welcome back.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, ma'am. Welcome back. Thank you very much. How are you? Good. How are you?
Okay, so we just saw a number of the cabinet members, including the Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, entering into Camp David. So again, that live feed, as soon as we see it, we go to it here on RSBN. Happy Friday to you. Thanks so much for joining us Friday, July 31st. As we await that live feed, in case you missed it, the GOP, the Senate, held a press conference within that 24/7 news cycle. Let's take a look at that.
Russia and Iran Act of 2026. It's legislation that I hope we can move across the floor. It was probably, I would say, in Lindsey's last days, the thing he cared most passionately about. It's something he's worked on for the past year, and I think we all, both Democrats and Republicans, realize not only would this be a great tribute to him and his work and his legacy on national security matters, but it would also be something that would really give the president a tool at his disposal to try and end the war in Ukraine. Ukraine is now the largest conflict, literally, since World War II in Europe. And the Ukrainian people have been resilient, worked really, really hard to try and bring this war to an end. But as long as Putin has Russian oil and gas money, he's able to continue this war. And what the sanctions bill would do would basically cut that off. And Lindsey also cared passionately, as you know, about the Middle East. And so the sanctions on Iran, I think, complement what's in the underlying bill. But the fact is there are 62 co-sponsors on the bill. We had a motion to proceed vote on it yesterday that got 86 votes in the Senate. It is.
Well, let's go from Thune to President Trump right now.
Transgender mutilization of your children and chaos and bedlam all over the world. Other than that, they did quite a good job. In less than 18 months, we've turned around 4 years of disaster. We now have the strongest border in American history. We went from the worst border, I believe, of any country in history. 25 million people came through in 4 years. And these are people that, in many cases, you don't want. They were murderers, they were drug dealers, they were people that you do not want. But now we have the strongest border in American history, and for the last 15 months, the report just came out again, we've had no people coming in through our southern border, zero. And it's almost hard to say, because you'd say, is that even possible? They had 25 million people came in. We have no people coming in through illegally through our southern border. And that's in history, so think of that zero, a big beautiful zero. The murder rate saw its single largest drop ever recorded to the lowest in 125 years. That goes back to, think of it, it goes back to 1900. Lowest murder rate in the history of our country. So that's something. Today, I just want to mention that we heard in Minnesota there was a cyber attack, and they blame it on Iran. I don't think so. I blame it on Minnesota because they're grossly incompetent. There was a cyber attack of 30 water plants, and I would blame it on Minnesota and the governor, the corrupt governor of Minnesota. They like to say, oh, it was Iran. Iran should be so lucky. Iran's got bigger problems than worrying about Minnesota. This month it was announced that inflation is dropping at the fastest rate in more than 6 years. Walmart, Sam's Club, Giant Eagle, and others are slashing prices by hundreds of grocery stores, and all of the stores, I mean, throughout the country, they're slashing prices, something that you haven't seen for a long time since my last administration. The stock market has set 73 all-time record highs since the election. That means all-time record highs, 73 days out of a very short period of time. And the typical 401k is up by more than $30,000. And when you think of that, if you add another $1,000 to it, it will be, we set the record in the last administration, a record still standing. This administration is going to blow my last administration away. When the factories that we're building at record, and we're not building them, all over the world they're building. They're coming from all over the world. They're coming from Germany with the cars. They're coming from Germany. They're coming from Japan, South Korea, Canada, Mexico. From all over the world, they're building auto plants here because otherwise they have to pay tariffs. The tariffs have made our country rich and successful. And all of this, I mean, I'd like to say it was the election. On November 5th, it was the election, and that's fine. But without the election, you wouldn't have what I've done economically. So we have the most successful environment that we've ever had. There's never been anything like it from the standpoint of investment into our country. It's 5 to 6 times higher than anybody has ever seen, than any other country, not just us, has ever had. On July 4th, we launched Trump accounts, a key provision of our great, big, beautiful bill. And these tax-free investment savings accounts have already been activated by over 7 million children. These are investments made in our future, which is our children. Our children are the most important aspect of our future, with more being added each day. So it's a tremendous hit. Over 7 million, and really, it really just got going, I would say, Scott, about 2 weeks ago when it was, we got the final approvals. And we have over 7 million. Actually, there's never been anything quite like that. But millions of accounts are pre-funded with $1,000 from the U.S. Treasury or generous gifts from private donors like Michael and Susan Dell and others who have given billions of dollars, billions. People are putting up hundreds of millions and billions of dollars into it and buying really a great future for children. When they turn 18 or when they turn 21, instead of having no hope, no future, they will end up with hundreds of thousands of dollars and maybe even more than that. So it's going to be something to see. With modest additional contributions, they'll grow by numbers that should be, it could be over $200,000. We're looking at the timeline. I wish we had an economy like we have now with the stock markets going up, but they will benefit by our country being successful. And we're going to give every child a head start on the American dream. So go to trumpaccounts.gov. They're really something, the whole world's talking about it, and it's far ahead of schedule. Nobody thought it would be as successful as it's been, but it should be. It should be, and we start them off with $1,000, and this was part of the great, big, beautiful bill. With my most favored nation policy, you could say this is even a bigger thing, if that's possible. On drug prices, we're achieving record discounts on prescription drugs. The prescription drugs were going through the roof for many years, and now we're getting record discounts with price differences of 300, 400, 500, 600%. Nobody's ever heard of a thing like that. And what this is all about is that we had the highest prices anywhere in the world by far. Most expensive drugs, prescription drugs, and others. The highest in the world. The whole world was laughing at us. We paid for the rest of the world. We subsidized the whole world. And I said, we're not going to do that. And I started it in the first administration. I took it up. Obviously, Biden wasn't able to do anything about it because you had to get the consent of the drug companies, and you had to get the consent. More difficult would be the consent of other nations. The other nations had to agree, but they were paying a fraction, sometimes 10%, 20%, 40%, 70% less. So I had to call them and I had to get them on, and I said, if you don't do it, we're going to have to charge you tariffs. And they all said no at first, very politely said, sir, we can't do that. We're not going to double our prices. They had to double their prices, and in some cases triple their price, and we would come down. So a pill that sold for $10 in Germany would sell for $130 in New York. Same pill from the same company, the same factory, the same plant, same laboratory, from $10, and we pay $130. I say, no. Now the world is a bigger place, so it's not as bad as it sounds for them. So they went up to 20, and we came down to 20. So we now have the lowest drug prices anywhere in the world. We're tied with the lowest, but we're basically its favored nation. So we have the lowest drug prices anywhere in the world from the highest drug prices anywhere in the world. Now, what that does for your health care, I mean, I see these fake polls where the Democrats have wonderful numbers on this stuff, and they are horrible what they've done. Obamacare is a total disaster. It's a costly wreck. It's unaffordable. We call it the Unaffordable Care Act. It's a disgrace. They never even thought of being able to do something like this. They didn't even try. So I got the drug companies first, and then I got the countries. And the drug companies agreed because they knew the countries wouldn't agree. And when I called Germany, France, when I called the UK, when I called all of these countries, I said, you got to do it. It's unfair. We're paying 10 times more than you're paying for the same drug. You can't do this. And they said, well, we're not going to do that because we're going to have to double our price in order to make you happy. I said, no, maybe you're going to have to triple your price. They said, well, we can't do it. I said, that's all right. If you can't do it, then I can't do something also. And I'm going to charge you very substantial tariffs, which are far more than we're talking about. And they all said, we'd love to do it. We would love to do it. It would be our great honor to do it. So nobody else would do this. This would have never happened. So your drug prices have gone down by numbers not even thinkable. My first term, I had the privilege of having lower drug prices from the beginning of the year till the end for the first time in 28 years, you remember. And I called a news conference to announce it. So the year had ended, and I was turned out 1/8 of a percent. 1/8 of a percent. Little tiny this much. It went down that much during 1 year. First time in 28 years it went down. It was always like this, just up, more expensive. And I called a news conference. I was so proud of myself, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, the first time in 28 years drug prices have gone down from January till the end of December. And I want to just congratulate everybody for being a part of this wonderful experiment. And 1/8 of a point now, we're talking about 400, 500, 600% coming down. We pay the lowest drug prices anywhere in the world from the highest. So, and I'll say it again and again because the press doesn't want to report it, the fake news doesn't want to report it. They don't want to talk about it. What that does for healthcare, Bobby, is unbelievable because medicine's a big part of healthcare. So I wish that people would understand that, and I hope they're going to vote for us in the midterms because you'll see some stuff that will be horrible because they can blow it very fast if they don't know what they're doing. So your drug prices are great. I saw Spain yesterday, and I watched the catastrophe that took place. It looks like an invasion of a country by hundreds of thousands of people. And that same thing's going to happen to us if the Republicans don't get elected, except worse. Much bigger, much easier to get into, despite the fact that we have built thousands of miles of wall, which I said we were going to do, but we didn't have that, forget it. But we have the safest border in the world. If we're not in office, our country will be invaded at levels that made Spain look small time. And when I watched it, I said, boy, I'm going to say it because I knew you were going to be at Camp David. And I say, that's going to be a talking point for the midterms. Because when you look at what happened to Spain, they don't know what to do. And it's happening again today. They're coming in by the tens of thousands. They're just invading the country. And what that is weak law, bad management, but very liberal law. They passed a couple of laws, and people read. People are smart. They read from other countries, and they swam that 3-mile swim or however they got in, but nobody's seen anything like it. That will look good compared to what's going to happen to the United States. The biggest thing, the worst thing that Biden did is allowing 25 million people into our country, because many of those people are criminals. They're murderers. A lot of murder. 11,888. A lot of them are gone now. We got them out. But they allowed people to come into this country that you can't allow to come into a country. We're also making an unprecedented investment in the United States Armed Forces, where we're doing great. And we rebuilt the armed forces. We rebuilt our military in my first term, but we are doing great with our military. They spent a lot of money in our military. They gave away $300 billion worth of ammo and everything else in Biden's term, but we're building it up fast, and we just have a great military. That's all there is to it. But we rebuilt it in my first term, and we're using it in my second term with Venezuela and other places, and Iran now. Iran is doing very poorly. Just in case you read incorrect stories, they're doing very, very poorly. They're having a hard time. They've been very dishonest. They've been very dishonorable to deal with. But that makes no difference. They're doing very, very poorly. We're also making that investment and looking forward to getting $1.5 trillion next year. And people see now how important it is. We want to keep a safe country. We have to keep a safe country. And the good news is all of that equipment is made in the USA. So we're making it here. It's jobs. And each one of our defense groups are building literally at least 4 new massive plants as we speak, because we want them to move faster. We have the best equipment in the world, but we want them to move faster. We don't want to wait a year or a year and a half. We want to wait a week, maybe. So that's happening, and I think the results are very good. They're building at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And we've had tremendous success, and our military was just proud of it. Again, Venezuela was a one-day war, and we have a great relationship with Venezuela. We're partners with Venezuela now, taking out tens of millions of barrels of oil, and going to Houston, going to Alaska, going to Louisiana, going to different places for refineries, and it's been very much amazing. The administration has done more in 18 months than most administrations have done in 8 years if you had a 2-termer. We've done more in 18 months than anyone's ever seen before. Nobody's ever seen. This is the golden age of America. And we have a war that's going on. I guess you call it a war. Maybe I call it a military operation, because they have no Navy. It's been obliterated. Their Air Force has been obliterated. They have no planes. Their missiles have been largely, they have some left. They have some, but they have far fewer than they had 4 or 5 months ago. Their manufacturing capacity is almost gone. The drone capacity is almost gone. They're very few, but they have some. If they have one, that's too many as far as I'm concerned. But we've done an amazing job with Venezuela. We've done an amazing job here. We're in there for 5 months, and I know people like to say, because we've done a much bigger job, much more important job than we originally anticipated. So we're in there for 5 months, and if you look at Vietnam, they were in there for 20 years. You look at Afghanistan, they were in there for many years. You look at any one of the wars, Korea, any one of them, they're in there for many years. We're in for 5 months, and we have obliterated their military capacity. Again, they've got some left, but soon they won't have some left. So I just want to thank everybody around this table. You've been very special. I want to thank a lot of the media people, because many of you have been very, very fair. That's one of the reasons you're here, frankly. But you've been very fair. You've covered me this time, much more fairly, I think, than the first term. The first term was a great success. We had the greatest economy in history in the first term, and this term is going to blow it away. I think this term is going to actually blow it away. So it's an honor to have you, and I'd like to ask our great Vice President, J.D. Vance, to say a few words, followed by Marco and Pete and Scott and Bobby Kennedy. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. Please, J.D.
Well, great. Thanks, Mr. President. First of all, thanks for having us at this historical and beautiful place. And it's an honor to be on the team, an honor to be able to work on fraud, which is what I want to talk about today, though I know we have a lot of things going on. This has been an amazing team, from Kelly Loeffler at SBA, to Doug at the VA, to Todd and Bobby Kennedy. This really has required a whole of administration approach to try to tackle fraud. There are a few things that I want to talk about and celebrate. The first is that just since the beginning of the fraud task force that I started under the President's leadership and direction, we have identified $230 billion of fraud that's being perpetrated against the American people. And we have halted already $56 billion of that. It's sometimes hard, once the money has already gone out the door, it's hard to get it back. But stopping it from going out the door is how we save the American people. $56 billion. And of course, we're going to keep on working on that. Just today, Mr. President, we will announce 17 new anti-fraud actions that will total about a third of $1 billion, and that's added to the $230 billion that we've already uncovered. And I want to just talk for the benefit of the American people about why do we care so much about this? Because what I always try to remind people is that fraud has two victims. So, to give one concrete example, there is a program that is administered by Medicaid, and that program ensures that low-income moms and low-income babies have access to neonatal care. Now, I think most Americans probably share my view that this is one of the great things about the United States of America, that if we see a baby and we see a young mother that requires help, we help our fellow Americans. That's a good thing. It's something that we should be proud of. And yet, there is a program that has defrauded the moms and the babies who benefit from these. You've gotten people who've gotten rich by setting up false companies that are providing false services. So who loses in that equation? Number one, of course, is the American taxpayer that is $230 billion poorer because of the fraud that this country has let go on. But I actually think most importantly is that we've seen that program run out of money. So we've seen moms and babies unable to access the health care that they need because the fraudsters have gotten rich. That is a disgrace. And until the president ordered us to stop it, no one was doing anything about it. So we've made a lot of progress, Mr. President, in just under a year, but we're going to keep on working at it because we believe the American people deserve to have their money spent as you and the Congress have directed it.
There's big numbers you're finding, tremendous numbers. They look like Elliot Ness. Does anybody know who Elliot Ness is? They look like that group of people you have lined up behind you. They're doing a great job.
Yes, sir.
Billions, think of, not millions, billions of dollars is being recovered. Billions. And you haven't seen anything yet. We have things happening that people aren't going to believe. The level of corruption and fraud that took place under the Biden administration was unprecedented. And Minnesota, California, Maine, believe it or not. You know, you think of Maine as this wonderful place.
Yep.
It's the level of corruption is incredible all over the place. So, great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, please.
Oh, my turn. Well, first of all, thank you for bringing us out here. I got the chance to drive for the first time in a year and a half, which is it was fun. It was great. And so just a couple points that we all know. We followed in the news, obviously, the events in the Middle East, and others here can talk about that. Not that they're not important, but there's some other issues happening around the world, Mr. President, that you've shown great leadership in that have not gotten nearly as much attention. I think they deserve to mention today. The first is the International Criminal Court is an illegitimate international organization that, frankly, illegitimate. They've made themselves illegitimate because they claim that even if you're not a member of that court, they can come after you. And what that literally means in the future is that American servicemen, political leaders, and others could find themselves under indictment by this International Criminal Court. And if you want to know a little bit about it, Jack Smith used to work there. These are the people that think they can go out and basically indict any world leader and haul them into The Hague. So we tried to get them to reform and listen to us. They wouldn't do it. They're very arrogant. We've now begun an effort to really try to bring that court to heel.
By the way, there's no information that they're after me. It could happen. But just so you know, just keep talking about it. That means that maybe he's not trying to defend me. He is trying to defend Bibi and various other people. But there are many people that shouldn't be looked at that way. But there is no indication that I'm one of them at this moment.
Well, and I actually think the people who are in biggest danger in our system are servicemen, people in uniform. But they'll try to go out for the rest of their lives. Will not be able to travel anywhere in the world with their families because they can be arrested on one of these. Imagine, you're a soldier, you fought in a war, and 20 years later they try to come grab you. So this is a big problem. So we've had dozens of countries already join us in this effort. Since we started 2 weeks ago, 5 countries have already quit the ICC and notified them that they're leaving, and we think there'll be more. The second thing is we had an unprecedented ministerial. 60 countries came to Washington, and we're a part of an effort where we were shedding light on far-left terrorism and violence. You know, if a bomb goes off somewhere and it's tied to some right-wing group, or I don't consider neo-Nazis right-wing, I consider them Nazis, right? But you're going to get a lot of attention on that. But if it's a leftist group, an Antifa group, they get no coverage, or they ignore the ideological spin and the ideological reason behind it. So we got 60 countries came up here and hopefully creating a strong coalition to go after far left violent terrorism. Go after it and call it by name, and I think we're building a very strong coalition there. We've had some successes in the Middle East, Mr. President. As you know, in the diplomatic front, the deal with Lebanon and Israel is unprecedented. President Ayoun was here a week ago. I think that was the first visit by a Lebanese president in over 30-some odd years. In fact, this is the first time the Israelis and the Lebanese government have spoken at the official level in close to 30 years. And that was thanks to your leadership. A lot of work to be done to keep that peace and build on it, but it's a real achievable. And of course, as you announced last night, Mr. President, this disarmament deal that you brought about with Steve and Jared's work on Hamas is another big step as well. It's something a lot of people thought would never happen. It needs to happen, but the fact they've even agreed to it is a real achievable. Last point is on the Western Hemisphere. For the first time in 15, 20 years, the overwhelming majority of the countries in the Western Hemisphere are now led by pro-American leaders and pro-American governments. It's an extraordinary achievement, all of it happening through virtually every election that's happened in the Western Hemisphere since you were elected president has elected someone who is pro-American. And I think this is an incredible situation. And last but not least, and I have to thank a number of agencies here, particularly the Department of War, after that terrible earthquake in Venezuela, within 36 hours, the full force of the American government was on the ground providing humanitarian assistance. It was a sight to behold. The USS Ford, I think, was in their port. Our Marines and armed service personnel were helping run their airport and their tower. It is one of the fastest, most dramatic, and most effective humanitarian responses, certainly in recent history, if not ever. And they came at the direction of the president. In fact, within an hour of that earthquake hitting, I remember because I was overseas, the president called and said, make sure we go in there and help these people recover from this. And we did, and thanks to your leadership, Mr. President. It's a great story. Enough needs to be told about it because the credit goes to so many agencies represented here today, but really the Department of War's effort was phenomenal. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Marco. And just before we continue, I want to just congratulate Jay Clayton. He's with us today. As you know, he just had a big victory. He's going to do a fantastic job. He's only done his whole life has been about doing a fantastic job. So congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the invitation, the opportunity to be here. It's an honor for the War Department to help run this facility. Also, from the food to the fence line, it's an honor to have you. And it's great Americans here and all around the country and all around the world who are the core of what keep us safe. But in order to do that, you have to have a leader that's willing to put them in a position to do it. And that's my takeaway, Mr. President, is. Sort of 3 points. 1, it takes courage. 2, it takes restoring a spirit, which you have done. And 3rd, it takes investment, and not just an investment, but a generational investment. And I think people miss that. The courage it takes to seal the border, to say we're going to do it, and we're going to do it every single day, and we're going to do it on behalf of the American people. The courage to bomb the Houthis and say we will maintain freedom of navigation. I wonder why they're not involved in this conflict, the Houthis, even though they're a proxy of Iran, because they've felt the weight of American power for 45 days, and you had the courage to do that. The courage to do Midnight Hammer and conclude the 12-day war by obliterating their nuclear sites. Something other presidents had the option on their table to do, but they never pulled the trigger because of the complications, because of the challenges, because of the risk. Courage. The courage to take on the cartels and drug boats, and now forming the ACCC, the America's Counter Cartel Coalition, with all those friendly governments that Marco talked about who want to be shoulder to shoulder, not just with America, but with a bold, strong America with clear leadership. The courage to go get Maduro in the most heavily guarded house, inside the most heavily guarded fort, inside the most heavily guarded town in their capital city in the middle of the night, and change the entire dynamic of that country and that region. And the world saw what the American military was capable to do, that doesn't happen unless the commander-in-chief says you're authorized to do it, and will take the handcuffs off when you do it to ensure that Americans come home. The courage to undertake epic fury and this Iranian regime and ensure they never have a nuclear weapon, which remains your commitment. And frankly, the courage to negotiate with people that have shown no willingness to do so honestly, with incredible negotiators who are the best in the world, and give them every opportunity to do it, give those things up peacefully. All of that takes guts. But that comes on the backs of a change in the spirit of our department. You talk about spirit all the time, and you're right to do so. When you rip out DEI, when you rip out social engineering and social justice, and you put in merit, and then you untie the hands of commanders to be commanders, to enforce discipline and accountability, to get back to basics, then you get historic re-enlistment inside our ranks. Our best people, Mr. President, are staying because they want to be in that kind of department. And then historic recruitment record amongst young Americans. Every month, our department breaks records. And when did that trend line start? On Election Day, 2024, when the American people said, I want to serve under this president. And that new name, the Department of War, has become the ethos, the warrior ethos of our department. Again, spirit. And I will note, the flyovers will indeed continue until morale improves. But that's also spirit. Parades, 250, flyovers, the American people seeing and feeling their military in ways they have not in the past. That's spirit. And then finally, Mr. President, a generational investment. You rebuilt the military in your first term. You've spent in your first year $1 trillion, and now we are committed in working with Congress to get $1.5 trillion. But this is not the same way we funded our department in the past. This is a businessman in charge. This is a deputy secretary of our department who's a turnaround guy, just like the president is, saying we will not fund money, we will not fund the department the way we have in the past. In fact, so far, $75 billion in private investment from defense companies who are now investing in new plants, new equipment, new assembly lines to build the munitions of the future faster than ever possible. That's saving taxpayer dollars because the companies themselves are investing. That would never, the arsenal of freedom would never happen without you. So just like, we use a lot of the things Ronald Reagan's buildup was a part of, in this administration and in future administrations, they will look back at Donald Trump and the buildup that he has done, and that will be, the deterrence of the future will be established because of your investment. So thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership.
Thank you. Scott, please.
Mr. President, it's an honor to be here in this historic place as we celebrate our nation's 250th anniversary. And I think if we look back, whether our founders was President Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, could not have imagined the economy that we would have created. It is the envy of the world, and as you said, we have record investment coming in. We've never seen anything like it, and we're pulling away from the rest of the world because of your leadership, the policies that you did from day one in terms of digital assets, in terms of technology, and bringing back American manufacturing. You've done it again. You had the incredible economy during your first term, and we are seeing that carry over here, and it is in stark contrast to the Biden economy, which was government jobs, government spending, and high inflation, the worst inflation in 50 years. And with the working families tax cut, which I will add, every Democrat voted against. Every Democrat voted against. It is the perfect barbell for this economy. On one side, you have full expensing for factories, for equipment, for farm structures. On the other side, your four signature policies, promises made, promises kept, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility of auto loans if you buy an American-made car. And the Americans are starting to feel it. Core inflation is low. Consumer confidence is strong. We have the highest consumer confidence, came up today, in 5 months, and Main Street is back. Small banks are lending, thanks to your policy. Small banks, community banks are lending again, and the Americans are starting to feel it. As you said, these Trump accounts are the most successful program launch in government history. We've had 7 million families sign up for them. We're going to get to open enrollment, and we will have 70 million families who have signed up for this. 38% of American families, households, have no exposure to our great equity market. And thanks to you, we're going to have an ownership society. An ownership society. You were one of the first presidents people not more debt. We had the biggest season ever. Trade deals, tax cuts, energy dominance, and the regulatory efforts. America is ushering in the greatest reshoring wave in our history. In June, our manufacturing sector expanded for the 6th straight month. We've got construction jobs, and those are going to lead into manufacturing jobs. We've got Main Street prosperity. Real wages are up $1,000. And sir, what you've done again too is the bottom 25% of wage earners, just like in your first term, are outperforming the top 25%. This is a working families administration. In the past year, that group had wage increases of 5.5%. They have 3 times what the top end has done. So you've done it again, and these are private sector jobs we're creating. As you often say in these meetings, we could have created 1 million, 2 million government jobs, but we didn't. The private sector is creating. We've got incentives, we've got money coming in, and we are rebuilding. And then our energy dominance, thanks to you and these policies, you can come to the U.S., you're going to have regulatory certainty, tax certainty, and energy certainty, so it is the best place in the world to build your factory. And finally, I want to add, it has been a pleasure to be a part, or a privilege to be a part of, as we've gone from epic fury to economic fury, to constrict, on your orders, constrict the Iranian regime's the financial tentacles all around the world. We started it on your orders. We started it in March 2025. In December of 2025, the largest bank in Iran collapsed. The central bank had to print money, caused inflation. Now they got 180% inflation. They aren't able to pay their troops. And on your orders, we are searching for their assets all around the world, and that money will go to the Iranian people, Americans who have been harmed by the Iranians, whether the USS Cole or the barracks in Lebanon, or it will go back to when the Iranians attacked the ships coming out. So it's been a privilege to be part of that, and I look forward to the rest of it.
Thank you very much. And I want to just add that today there are more people working in the United States than at any time in the history of our country. We have more people working today. Well, think of that number. I mean, more people working today by far than at any time in the history of our country. So it's been something very, very special. Bobby, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just take a moment to take note of the historical significance of this occasion. Before the press came in, you asked all the cabinet members who had been to Camp David before, and I think about 3/4 of them had. I raised my hand, but I haven't been here for 62 years. I came here on weekends, as many weekends as we could between 1961 and 1963. My father loved this place. My uncle loved this place. Nobody knows about this because it's not in the history books, but he was resentful at Dwight Eisenhower for renaming it Camp David. And he said if he had made it to his second term, he was going to rename it Shangri-La, which was the original name that Roosevelt had named it. My uncle prided himself on being the most open, transparent administration in history. He was the first president to have televised press conferences. During his 1,000 days in office, he had about 30 press conferences. You, Mr. President, have press conferences every day. Nobody's done anything like that. And here you've opened the inner sanctum of the presidency for the first time in history, and I think that's a beautiful thing. As you also face, although you gave these guys a lot of compliments, the most hostile press corps that any president in United States history uniformly. So, anyway, I'm going to talk just briefly about a subject you alluded to, which is the MFN, and just so everybody has the background, you were here to every president promised to fix that disparity between what we pay and what the other developed countries have paid. When you came into office, the list price for Ozempic was $1,350 for Americans. You could get it at any pharmacy in London, Hamburg, Frankfurt for $88. And this, every president, President Bush, President Biden, President Clinton, President Obama, have all promised to fix this. None of them did anything. You fixed it. But today, time you leave office, assuming that's in 2028, 95% of the drugs that are available to Americans, they will be paying the lowest prices in the world. Trump RX, just in the short time since we put it up, has saved Americans $700 million. We now have 800 drugs on there. We have deals with Amazon and with GoodRx. We're adding more and more drugs every day. And I'll just give you one example. Praluent is a very popular cholesterol drug. Its list price is $522. That's what everybody is paying. We now have it on Trump RX for $237. That means that the 300,000 Americans who take that drug will be saving $3,700 a year on pharmaceuticals every year. And you can apply that across the board. This is going to change. It's making pharmaceuticals affordable, the most affordable in this country of any country in the world. Well, thank you, Mr. President.
How are you doing on the autism research?
We will have an answer for you. We just got
It's so important. Okay, we'll be talking about that. We'll be having something of interest. Such an important thing. There's a picture of your uncle right there on the wall. I know. He's looking handsome guy. And that's quite a picture. Did you see it?
Yeah.
So maybe that gave you the idea to start out that way, but it's quite a picture. Any questions?
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
We've seen these strikes between Iran and the United States over the past 10 days. How do you go about reviving the ceasefire and getting diplomacy back on track?
Well, I think we just want to win. We just want to win. We're doing very well. We're trying to be nice as you can be in a situation like that. But they're being decimated. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft. Doesn't mean they don't have any capability. They have some, but very little. We just want to win. We don't want to have them. It's very simple. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran will not have a nuclear weapon, and they can't have a nuclear weapon. If they did, the Middle East would have been wiped out by now. If I didn't stop the JCPOA, the Obama deal, if I didn't terminate that, they would have had a nuclear weapon. I believe Israel would no longer be with us, and big parts of the Middle East, and perhaps other countries in different continents, frankly, because these people are crazy. So they cannot have a nuclear weapon, and they won't.
Mr. President, expect over the next 4 weeks, 8 weeks?
We'll be hitting them. We'll be hitting them very hard. And at some point they're going to say, we just can't take it anymore.
Mr. President, on the disarmament deal that you announced, do you have assurances from Israel that they are on board with this deal? And what comes first? Does Israel pull back and then Hamas disarms, or does Hamas need to disarm and then Israel leaves Gaza?
So we do have an understanding with Israel. Israel is very happy about it. Israel helped us with it. And they've been very good. They've been very good about it. Most people said that would be a deal that would be undoable. Now, will it go through its ups and downs? It's a very complex situation over there. The people are very complex and difficult. Many cases wonderful, in many cases not so wonderful. But that will be it's a great breakthrough. Nobody thought that would be possible, to disarm Hamas. That shows you how much success we're having with Iran. Because if you go 4 months ago, 5 months ago, a deal like that would have been impossible. So it's a big step for the Middle East, and people are really impressed by it, and they're surprised by it.
And what comes first, Mr. President? What comes first?
Did Mr. Infantino speak to you about their proposal to sell a stake in the World Cup, and is that something you support, having just happened?
Who?
Did FIFA or Mr. Infantino speak to you about their proposal to sell a stake in the World Cup?
Mr. President, you said this morning on Truth Social that victims of government abuse should be paid back.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the anti-weaponization fund, would you still want the acting attorney general?
Well, I'm talking about the weaponization against large numbers of people in our country by the Biden administration and by Obama, but by the Biden administration in particular in this case. But large numbers of people, their lives have been ruined, they've been destroyed, their families have been decimated, they've gone to prison for no reason whatsoever. There's never been a group of people, most likely, I can think of a couple that were treated pretty badly, groups, but there's essentially never been a group of people treated so badly as these people. And this fund was not for me. This fund was for those people that have been weaponized, that have been abused, Now, I was abused. They attacked my house, Mar-a-Lago, where I live, and I was, big damages should have been given to me. I don't want anything. I'm not talking about myself. I think that there's a group of people in this country, history will show, that were treated like nobody else has ever been treated. So badly, so horribly. Their families have been ruined. Many, many suicides. They've committed suicide. People that were very successful that wanted to go to a rally or an event and ended up spending the rest of their lives in horror. No, so I mean, you can say what you want about the fund, and they've agreed to not have a fund. But there are a lot of people that are very upset about it. A lot of Republican people, a lot of Democrat people are very upset about it. A lot of people were covered. I wasn't covered by that fund. I don't want to be covered by the fund. I probably was abused more than anybody in the history of our country. But I wasn't looking for that. But there were a lot of people. And I'll tell you something, Todd Blanche is a very, very good man. And he shouldn't be in the middle of this. He should get approved, because you will never get anybody like him. You're never going to get anybody. And to make him a pawn in this whole thing, this is being done by a senator. And I don't really blame him, to be honest with you. I endorsed his opponent. And as soon as I endorsed his opponent went through the roof, and he won the primary election in Texas for the Senate. And the man that lost, the man that I didn't endorse, has become very angry, and that's okay. I mean, I understand that. I probably would do the same thing. You want to know the truth? I think I'd do the same thing.
Mr. President, on that though, do you agree, just to be clear, do you agree with the Acting Attorney General that the anti-weaponization fund is dead? And why not just put that in writing?
Well, it is dead, but, I wish it weren't, to be honest with you. I think people were horribly treated, horribly abused. This has nothing to do with Todd. This was me. Horribly abused, and I'd like to see them compensated for the pain. They lost their families. They committed suicide. Many people committed suicide. They went down for an innocent journey. And I'm not only talking there, I'm talking about not even having to do with that. The way they were treated. The Biden administration and the Obama administration weaponized government and destroyed lives.
Mr. President, are you willing to accept limits on the scope of the audit immunity deal in order to get Attorney General Blanche confirmed?
Well, no, he should be approved forthwith. I mean, you're never going to get a person like that. Everybody agrees to it. Don't forget, Senator Cornyn thought he was phenomenal until he lost. When he lost, is that a correct statement? You come from Texas. I mean, he thought this was the most incredible person. And then when he lost, now he lost because of me. I endorsed somebody else, and as soon as I endorsed the other person became a rocket ship upward, and he lost. And I think I'd be the same.
But would you?
I mean, I shouldn't say that, but I'd be upset also, and so I fully understand it. He shouldn't be that way. I shouldn't be that way, but he is that way. He's become a very angry person, and I understand. You have a couple of others that I've caused their defeat too, and you'll probably hear from them too. Yeah.
Mr. President, back on Iran, there was a report that you got a proposal from the military to go big and hit them hard over 10 or 14 days.
Well, we're going big.
Are you going to consider?
We've already gone big. Look, I mean, what's big? They had 159 ships. That was their entire Navy, 159. Their entire Navy is laying at the bottom of the sea. I say that's going big. They had 200 airplanes. They're all gone. Every one of them. They don't have one airplane. They had anti-aircraft weaponry, very good, but it didn't work. And it's all gone. Their radar is all gone. Their leaders are all gone. Everything's all gone. But they'll fight onward.
Mr. President, on Ukraine, you said the other day that you're not sure about whether to grant Ukraine the Patriot missile license that had been discussed. Do you want to see more from Zelensky before you take that action?
Well, it's a big step. Look, we have the greatest weapons in the world. We have the greatest drones in the world. People don't know that. We have the greatest weaponry in the world. We have, in the case of President Zelensky, he'd like to have some Patriots. He'd like to have some Tomahawks, which are, lethal, one offensive, one defensive. But when you give somebody the right, very complex weapons, by the way. I mean, the Patriot, as an example, the other day you read that 5 missiles were shot. They were going 8,600 miles an hour. Think of it, 8,600. Now a car, if you go 60, it gets to be a little faster. If you go 100, 8,600 miles an hour, and they were big missiles. And they were shot at Jordan, and our guys were there, bing, 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 bing. 5. Big, 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 big. Right? I don't want to be minded. I had to be very careful. That would have been a great soundbite. Right? There were 5 missiles, and we shot all 5 down before they got close. Nobody else has that capacity. These weapons are incredible. We have to be very careful about letting somebody build them. You know, it's very important now. We are building many plants now to make those, and the Tomahawk missile is the most incredible thing. It can go into a doorway. You can put it through a window of a house. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. You have to be very judicious, but you have to be very careful. Now, we have not agreed to that. We're talking about it, but it's a hard thing to give away that kind of technology. And I don't think this would ever happen, but you know, those people that you give that technology, they can someday turn on you. You know, that is possible. If you look at war, it's happened a couple of times over the years, right? So we have to be very careful. I mean, we guard that. We have the greatest weapons in the world. Now we have to make them a little bit faster because we've given a lot away. You know, President Biden, unfortunately, gave a lot away to Ukraine. And he gave, so did I. I mean, I gave them the javelins, the tank busters. Without the javelins, that war would have been a one-day war. It would have been over. They wiped out the tanks going up to Kiev, where they got stuck in the mud. They had a general that decided to go through the mud instead of going up the highway where they were going very nicely. It would have been over. But no, I gave them the javelins. The javelins are unbelievably. We have the greatest weapons in the world. We have to be very careful about giving out the secrets to those weapons, and they're not. You can't copy them. It's a little like NVIDIA. They have a chip. They say you cannot copy it. Complexity is so great you cannot. You know, most things you copy. China's known for it. Other countries, we do something, and I guess we copy also. But most things you copy pretty easily. There's a chip that they made, their ultimate chip, and they always have the ultimate chip. And I say, well, why doesn't somebody copy it? Because they can't, the complexity. They can't copy our weapons. We have the greatest weapons in the world, many of them. Those are just 2 or 3 that I mentioned, but you cannot copy them, so we have to be very careful.
As Hamas disarms as part of this plan, who do you see as taking possession of those weapons that they had? Does that go to the new government? Or does it
be the Board of Peace, mostly? It's going to be run by the Board. This Board of Peace has been it's led by some amazing people. Board of Peace.
Mr. President, you said they do have some capabilities left.
Yeah.
Should Americans be prepared for these back and forth attacks to continue until Iran simply isn't able of striking back?
They'll get weaker. They'll get a little stronger maybe now, but they'll get weaker, and then they peter out. Yeah, sure, I think so. I mean, it'd be foolish to say no. You know, you always have to keep your guard up.
What is the status of talks? Who from the administration?
Well, they always want to talk, but they break their word so often. Steve is talking, Jared. We have very good people. JD's involved, very strongly involved. We have great people talking. Marco's involved.
Because they say talks aren't happening.
Very good people. We have the best people. But they'll make a deal. As an example, we'll talk about nuclear. And we'll be in there talking about nuclear for 7 hours. I say, why do you need 7? You can take 10 minutes. You have 5 minutes. You should solve it. But 7 hours, and then they'll go out, and I'll say, they discuss nuclear. And they'll go out and they'll say, we never discussed nuclear. And I say, why do they say that? All they do is make me angry. You know, you just make me angry. Any other questions?
Do you believe that you can reach a deal with Iran, given that you talked about?
Yes, you can. I mean, look, I'm losing faith in them because they do lie and they do misrepresent. Well, the other day, the 5 missiles were shot. We knocked them down, but we were in the midst of a negotiation. I mean, I'm waiting for Steve to call me. How's the negotiation going? And instead, I got a call from Pete that they just shot 5 missiles at one of our bases in Jordan. You know, we have bases in Jordan. Fortunately, our people operated the equipment. It's also very complex to operate. You know, you talk about the equipment. It's you have to be, oftentimes you see, where did you go to school? MIT, Caltech. I mean, you know, they go to schools that are not as normal for the military, to be honest with you. We have unbelievably brilliant people operating that equipment. And when you don't, you know, the equipment, the shots miss, the safety misses, or the accuracy misses. We have unbelievable people. Think of it, we had 111 at one point, a couple of months ago. 111 over a short period of time, missiles were shot at the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. Great, beautiful ship. One of the most beautiful ships to me, design-wise. 111 missiles going out. Out of the 111 missiles, 111 missiles were shot down quite a bit earlier than they got. I mean, long before they got there. They were shot down. It was almost, in a couple of cases, they were shot down almost as they were taking off. It's incredible technology. So you have a ship that costs billions of dollars, and you have missiles heading to it. 111 missiles were shot down, routinely shot down. And I spoke to the people. I like to reward people. I call them up. I'm the president. And they were cool as a cucumber.
Mr. President, the last 2 weeks of strikes by CENTCOM has said that those were meant to degrade Iran's ability to disrupt the Strait of Hormuz. How many more strikes will it take to significantly?
Well, you never know. Look, I mean, most people would have given up by now. You know, they've got no Navy, they got no Air Force. Most people would have given up. They haven't. So I give them credit for that. I mean, they're known as being tough. They're tough.
Back on Ukraine, what did you tell President Zelensky about the Patriots? Did you explain all that to him?
I did. I spoke about Patriots. I spoke to him about Tomahawks. Spoke to him about everything. I also spoke to him about, let's get this war over with. So last month they had 25,000 people. It's averaging about 25,000 people a month die. Mostly soldiers. Almost entirely, but you know, missiles are hitting areas also, but mostly soldiers. They had 25,000 soldiers. The month before that it was 32,000 soldiers. I said, you got to get this war over with. I think he wants to make a deal, and I think Putin wants to make a deal. But there's a lot of dislike, as you probably noticed.
He seems very reluctant to make concessions, President Putin.
Well, nobody wants to make concessions, but they're both going to have to make some concessions. I mean, they got to make a deal. 25,000 young, beautiful people, soldiers, mostly soldiers, are dying a month. It's. I ended 8 wars. That was the war I thought would maybe go first. And it really hasn't. It's gone last. I mean, I ended wars that were, in theory, much more difficult to end. We had a couple that were into the 30-year category. Well, the Congo, look at the Congo and Rwanda. That was our nasty war. And they have peace. I don't know how long that one's going to stay. But we ended India, Pakistan. 11 planes were shot down. That was raging. That was gone. I used tariffs. I said, if you're going to go to war, 250% tariff to each of them. And they screamed and yelled and were very angry. They were both angry about it. And a day later they called and they said, we will not go to war. But I ended up, and the Prime Minister of Pakistan said I saved 50 million lives. Because that's two nuclear powers, serious nuclear powers. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Enjoy campaign. I think that Minnesota is behind it. You know who's behind it? Minnesota, because they're grossly incompetent. I think the governor's behind it. I don't think there was an Iranian cyber attack. I think that Minnesota ought to get its act together. It's one of the worst run states. JD will tell you. He found tremendous corruption in Minnesota. Yes, sir. And by the way, just gave me a report. Massive future things having to do with corruption in Minnesota are happening right now. Thank you.
Have you talked to Senator Fetterman about leaving the Democratic Party? Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
President Trump holding his 13th cabinet meeting of his second administration, this time at Camp David in Maryland, some 70 miles northwest of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. This live stream broadcast brought to you by mypillow.com/RSBN. Premium MyPillows. There's also a mattress topper sale. Giza Dream Sheets are on sale. 6-piece My Towel sets, $39.98. President Trump just talking about Minnesota just a second ago. August 11th is that primary election. Of course, Mike Lindell running for governor in Minnesota. And if you'd like to donate to Right Side Broadcasting Network, all you have to do is go to rsbnetwork.com/donate, rsbnetwork.com/donate. And of course, we had quite the pre-show here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're watching live or maybe on replay over the weekend. For all of us here on RSBN, I'm Matthew Alvarez. We'll see you again soon.